All right, Gilbert Erickson, I'd like to welcome you to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Good evening. Doing very well.
First off, I want to ask you, you know, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself for those of, the people out there listening right now that don't know who you are. Why don't you give them a little background of you?
Well, I'm a guy from California, retired. Been a, let's see, soldier, helicopter pilot, writer, teacher, mechanic, machinist, poet, singer, one-time guitar player.
My God, you sound like the jack of all trades.
Yeah, master of none. Grew up on a farm in New York. We came to California during my college days and decided after Vietnam, I decided this is probably the one place I really enjoy the best of all the places I lived all over the United States. So
I
this
think,
is where we kind of settled in. My dad bounced around a lot, but I've stayed in California, Southern California, since I got back from Nam.
well, it's anywhere is better than Nam, right?
Well, yeah, unless you got family there, you know.
Well, I mean, back when you were there.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was worse sometimes than it should have been. And then I come back and find out at the end of it all that the whole thing wasn't necessary at all. And that was a bit of a disappointment. And you end up getting an education you really didn't want, you know, basically the hard way.
Yeah.
Shoved up certain portions of your anatomy that you wish you didn't have things shoved up.
Yeah, I actually had a high school teacher that was a NAM, and when we were watching a Forrest Gump movie, when they would go to the clips of him going over there, he would always have to fast forward. He couldn't even take watching it.
Yeah.
That,
Well, I was a pilot, so I didn't have to pound the ground and do a lot of stuff. But then again, I was a little bit more disconnected from the people, and except for getting shot up and shot down, most of it's fairly interesting.
I can't even imagine.
I was one of the few people who didn't drink, so I ended up getting all the crummy night missions. They have a way of getting to you.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. I understand we're going to be talking about Planet X tonight. Now, there are some people, believe it or not, out there that don't understand what it is. So what I would like for you to do is just explain to the listener, sum it up a little bit. What is Planet X?
Planet X just means planet 10 or planet unknown. That's the definition of X, Planet X. And it's referring to what has been known as the 10th planet, I guess, is another way of looking at it, which has been known since ancient days. It's part of our solar system. Basically, it's not really a planet. It's a brown dwarf star. It's got a surface temperature probably in the neighborhood of 700-800 degrees. Somewhere between the size of Saturn and up to maybe 1.1 times the size of Jupiter. So it's a brown dwarf. It's not large enough to attract enough plasma energy from space to make its atmosphere glow like the sun does, to have a photosphere.
Right.
Or like a red dwarf does. Red dwarfs can be as small as 1.2 Jupiter diameters. So this has to be slightly smaller than that. As they shrink down smaller than 1.2 Jupiter diameters, then they can't collect enough energy to make the full photosphere, like a aurora borealis around the entire planet. But it's not a planet. It's a pinch off the sun itself. It's basically a big iron ball. So somewhere between 1.1 Jupiter diameters on the high end and down to maybe Saturn size. My guess is closer to a Jupiter size, plus or minus.
So it's pretty big, no doubt.
Well, Jupiter is 317, not quite 318 times the size of Earth. It's a little bit more oblate than Earth. It's more squashed down at the poles. So its girth around the equator is longer than its polar girth. But Planet X will be about that size. Could be a little bit bigger than Jupiter, but not much. And it's the binary companion for our sun in this solar system. I should explain to your audience too that about before the WISE satellite, we figured around 65% of the stars out here in the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy in our sector of space, about 65% were red dwarf stars and brown dwarf stars. You can't see a red dwarf or a brown dwarf with the naked eye. They're just not bright enough. It takes pretty good equipment to see a red dwarf. Now, they do have a glowing atmosphere, photosphere, but a brown dwarf does not. They're too small. So
so you can see this with your basic telescope.
You can see a red dwarf. You can't see a brown dwarf. Brown dwarfs have a heat signature, so they give off light. They give off a signal in the near infrared, but they don't give off anything, in the visible part of the spectrum that the human eye can see. Rattlesnakes could see it if they were looking through your telescope.
I wanted to ask you this, too. On your website, you have a wormwood animation. That would be what, millenniumprophecy.com?
That's correct.
And we also got that on the midnighthighway.com. Explain that animation and how you come up with that particular orbit.
Well, basically, I had my son do the math. He's a bit of a wizard on computers anyway. He's a pipeline code writer for the movie industry. And we wanted to get a perihelion display of sorts to show what this thing would look like, the tremendous long reach it has because of its extreme mass, weight. And it'll come in somewhere between 5, if it's a Jupiter size object, it'll come in between 4 or 5 on the low end, maybe 7. If it's 1.1 Jupiter's diameter, then it could be as high as 11 times Jupiter's weight based on density. Basically, it's a big, giant cannonball. It's a pinch off the sun itself, formed during the early days of the solar system formation. You're looking for something a little bit more even odd, red and black or something. But you don't take an 82% chance against you. Okay? Yet, 82% of the stars are binary.
Also, if you think you have got a good story to tell or have some information to share with the listener,
we know now that the stars are binary, mostly binary, and most of them are small. You can't even see them. And the brown dwarf stars, you have to have infrared capability to see them, because you can't see them by a light signature. You have to look at them in the near infrared. So small stars dominate on a nose count basis.
I'd like to welcome you to the show, my friend. How you doing? Okay.
Good evening. Doing very well. If it flip the odds back the other way, the odds then become 80%.
Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself for those of
that the sun is
people out there
also
listening
a
right now
binary,
that don't know who you are.
Like 82% of the other stars.
Background of you.
That makes sense? I'm a guy from California, retired. Then the question comes, okay, well, the sun is, the odds are 82%, soldier, helicopter pilot, but the sun is a binary. Writer, teacher, mechanic, sun's binary companion, poet.
That's getting deep right
now you're asking the correct question, is it?
Yes.
One-time guitar player. It's not a fear-mongering issue.
My God, you sound like the jack of all trades.
It's a solar system construction in New York and a statistical came to California during so if we can't see the sun's binary companion, then it's not a red dwarf because they're visible. After Vietnam, this is probably the one place. Then that means we have to be looking for it in the infrared part of the spectrum. Okay, that's where we kind of settled in. So anyway, from a statistical point of view, Southern California, since so many stars are binary pairs, that's just how it is. Well, I wouldn't want to take the fear-mongering label. Yeah, but I wouldn't want to bet against it either. There's family there,
Well, I mean, back when you were there. I mean, I know you said you've been looking into this for about 40 years.
It was a revelation, as bad as it could have been, integrated correctly.
Now, what about Planet X? I mean, what really got you into the topic?
At the end of it all, the whole thing wasn't necessary at all.
Just kind of break it down.
That was a bit of a disappointment. Well, my problem is, again, how do you explain what's the driver mechanism that can cause all these physical, basically, effects described in Revelation 6, certain portions of your anatomy that you wish you had shoved up in Revelation 16. Not the political effects in chapter 9 and so on. But the physical effects, 6, 7, 8, and chapter 16. What drives that? That was a big one. It wasn't until our good buddy, you've interviewed him, Dr. Jason Rand's a pilot, so I didn't have to pound the ground and do a lot of stuff. But then again, I realized he'd hit the nail on the head. And what we had to do was put it together, shut up and shut around, and try to fill out that most of it's fairly description.
I can't even imagine.
And that if we could, I was one of the few people who didn't drink. We might, we might have. I ended up getting all the Friday night missions. We also had at least one source from inside the Pentagon. They have a way of not beltway, but inside the.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Let's just say connected insider. Who told us that from the best information that they had, the thing would be 60 times Jupiter's mass, and it would be orbiting at 90 degrees.
What is Planet X?
To the ecliptic plane. Planet X. That's where those diagrams came from on the website. Planet unknown. That's the definition of X. All right. Now we have to impose a little bit of other order to it. Referring to if it is a body orbiting anything in space, it will orbit and it will spin. Because that's what the plasma energy of space does to bodies, which has been known since ancient days. It's part of our solar system. Basically, it's not really a planet. It's a brown dwarf star. perpendicular. It's got a surface temperature orbital plane, in the neighborhood of 700-800 degrees. In other words, when it generates an ellipse somewhere between the three-dimensional Saturn and up to maybe 1.1 times the size of Jupiter. Okay? So it's a brown dwarf. And that plane then is at 90 degrees to the ecliptic plane, generated by the sun, energy from space, and its planet, to make its atmosphere glow. Like so with that information, I started trying to pose order. Okay, what would we have? Well, like a red dwarf filling in the blanks. Red dwarfs can be as small as 1.2. And then more and more information kept coming in about brown dwarfs in general. So this has to be slightly smaller than that. As we work our way through smaller than the 1.2 Jupiter diameter information, the clues, you try to construct a basic idea what it is that's going on. Well, the surface temperature is 700 degrees, aurora borealis around 800 degrees. It's pretty hot. It's not a planet. It's not hot enough to give off light. Pinch off the sun. You can heat up a piece of iron. It's a basically a big iron ball. Somewhere between 1.1 Jupiter diameters on the high end and down to melting point size. 11 or 1200 degrees now it starts to glow red. You can see it then.
So it's pretty big, no doubt. Very interesting.
Okay. Well, Jupiter is about 317. By putting these clues together, we come up with it's a little bit more better profile as to what it actually is. So it's a giant cannonball, probably somewhere between Saturn size and Jupiter size. So I'm guessing more towards Jupiter size. Around the upper limit, probably around 1.1 Jupiter's diameters max, but could be smaller. Planet X will be about that size. Could be a little bit bigger than Jupiter, but classified information. And it's a brown dwarf. It's the binary companion of the sun. It's mostly iron. I should explain to your audience, it's a Jupiter-sized object. It'll be probably in the 7 to 8 times Jupiter's mass. Before the WISE satellite, we figured around 65%. And if it's 1.1 Jupiter's diameters, then it'll be about 11 times Jupiter's mass. And that's about the upper 5% were red dwarf stars. Lower limit, Saturn size. So anywhere from there on down. You can't see a red dwarf or a brown dwarf star, alkaline atmosphere, gathers Oort cloud junk. Takes pretty good equipment to see asteroids, pieces of space junk, glowing atmosphere, all kinds of methane ice and crap out of the Oort cloud, the trans-Neptunian objects, and so on. And when it comes in on perihelion, it's loaded for bear with lots of junk. You can see a red dwarf. It also seems to have a tremendous capacitive charge. So they give off light. The juice coming out of the sun plus wormwood spin, but they don't give off volcanic action. Seems to lose billions of tons of highly charged iron oxide particles if they were looking through out into its upper atmosphere and from there out into its disk. So it creates a reddish-brown dust.
That would be
what? So it's got a kind of a rusty, dusty disc. That's correct.
And we also got that on Highway.com.
The Revelation describes hail and fire mixed with blood, a red color. Well, basically, I had my son do the math. He's a bit of a wizard on computers anyway. He's a pipeline code writer for the movie industry. We've learned some things, if you would, by piecing the clues together over the years. Perihelion. This is the picture that emerges. Display of sorts to show what this thing would look like, the driver mechanism long reach it has, because of the prophecy, the Revelation prophecy describes as something that's going to happen. A driver mechanism. It'll come in somewhere between 5, if it's a Jupiter-sized object, it'll come in between 4 or 5 on the low end, maybe 7. If it's 1.1 Jupiter's diameter, then it could be as high as 11 times Jupiter's weight. Hey, I'm a mechanic, a machinist. Basically, it's a big, giant cannonball. They touch off the sun itself. And I like to fly. Formed during the early days of the solar system. But the point is that if you've got these physical effects, then what makes it happen? So anyway, we wanted that was my question. What this looked like. That's how I approached the problem. And Jason Rand was the only one who even got roughly 660-year periodicity for starters. Was that he described good animation that way people possibility of 2 sets of events. Like, as it's cutting through the solar system with me. Because that's what happens in the Revelation. There's a description of some very raunchy effects that happen in chapter 8. Yes. And then you've got a delay for 3.5 years. And here comes another set of effects that happen in chapter 16. The Revelation is really the starting point, if you would, for this kind of thing, at least for me. The problem was that you have a list of things that are described. So we met when he was out here a couple of times, some of which appear to happen almost supernaturally, but the result is quite physical. Tried to super flesh it out. In order to make the Revelation make sense, I've been digging into this for like 40 years, trying to figure out what is a driver mechanism that would produce these kinds of physical results. I owe a debt to him. And you're coming up into it, in Revelation. But the delay between the 2 sets of events, and then there's a separate set of events that happen in Revelation 16. And it makes sense. It's a perihelion maneuver, and it turns out that inbound effect of all the things that could drive these kinds of reaction effects. Based on the timing, and it just makes perfect sense. Planetary movements.
Get into that in a minute,
you could, in fact, get stuff like this.
I mean,
Wormwood has a tremendous amount of space junk orbiting around it.
I know you said right now we can't see it. But
Revelation 8 describes the coming incineration event.
It's a big black ball.
It says that 1/3 of the Earth will be incinerated,
volcanic
will be burned up.
Fissures and stuff on the surface.
Well, what that means is wormwood is gathering huge amounts, hundreds of billions of tons of methane ice
at the
from the Oort cloud and from the Kuiper Belt. There's a lot of methane ice out there.
As it approaches the ecliptic
and it can
plane
collect this stuff
and starts catching
and
a
it brings
blast
it in.
of the solar wind,
It throws it into the
throw a
atmosphere.
coma, and its
Well, that
atmosphere
wouldn't
will
mean
light
much
up
for the other
and
planets
we'll get
because they have methane
bit of a showing
atmospheres,
of
carbon
like a red
dioxide
glow
on
around
Mars.
it, and it's going to throw the most
god-awful
sulfuric
long,
acid
hairy-looking
coma
planet
out
Earth
behind it
has
that'll
20%
probably be
oxygen to work with.
multi-stranded,
So when
and
you
it will
throw
go
methane
millions
ice
and
into the
millions of
atmosphere
miles
of
out
the Earth,
behind it. So it's going to be a
balls of
raging,
ice
screaming
down.
How
They
big would
melt
that be in
and
the
catch on
sky?
fire because of
How
the
big
heat
would
of
that look in the
re-entry,
sky?
if you would.
Well, the
Coltrane
fire literally
Bible
rains
describes
in
it as
from the
taking
sky.
up, I think it's something like 20% of your field of vision when you look up into the sky, from the collection of the sun. So when it at its closest point, as it flies overhead, and it just helps itself, and you look up,
You get a lot of people
about
out there
20%
that
of your field of vision in the nighttime sky is going to be very big and very impressive. To be honest, I really didn't want to get into it.
Alright, well, let me go
My
back.
problem was that I'd taken
talking Planet
so
X.
much time in
We're
my
also
life to
talking
try to
wormwood,
develop
same
positive
thing.
attitude
What about Nibiru? That always
and doing,
comes up
and as an inventor, you really do
was
have
the
to
name used by
believe
the
in
Sumerians
stuff with a great deal of faith, before you go
made that popular.
designing a project.
Nibiru
is a very good descriptor from the ancient culture.
Somebody's going to find use out of it.
It means
it's going to work like you think it will.
Literally, it means
the
that takes a lot of positive attitude. So to get into this,
and there's instead of going around, ring around the
really
rosy
like the other planets do in the ecliptic plane.
My problem though
This
was
thing is
to
at
try
90
to solve
degrees
the
to it,
puzzle,
so it cuts
if you would,
across all
that the
the
Revelation presented. You follow?
So how do you solve
And
that
so its
problem? What is the
description is
driver
that
from the
mechanism
ancient culture, Nibiru,
make
the planet of the
things
crossing?
happen?
The descriptions are very graphic. They're very, it's an eyewitness description of
what
the
could
orbital
drive
pattern
all that?
during its perihelion
more a
maneuver.
problem of
It looks like it crosses
answering the
the
question
sky
of what
the
could
wrong
drive
way.
these kinds
So
of
the
reactions.
planets are
That's
supposed to
where
go
I was
around
coming
this
from.
way.
I didn't
What's this
intend
thing
to
doing?
start
It
out as
flies
a
right
fear
overhead.
monger.
It wasn't my
This is scary.
Yeah, it is.
Preferred mode of thinking, if you
And
would.
so that's
And
what
you know
that
what,
means.
Joe,
Nibiru
by
is
the
the
same
planet
token,
of the
if you look at
crossing.
the Bible,
That's what
I
that
mean,
means.
the way it's written, I mean,
what is
there's a lot of
fear?
fear.
Oh, there's one more. Hang on, let me.
You know, you can look at the Bible as almost being
It's also
fear-mongering,
referred
you know what
to
I'm
by
saying?
the
I mean, 'cause it's
ancient
like
Babylonians as
stuff raining
Marduk,
down from the sky,
M-A-R-D-U-K,
mountains
Marduk,
falling from the sky, it goes
and that
on
means
and on.
the
I mean,
bull
that's some pretty
calf
scary
of the
stuff.
sun.
And one of the reasons I wanted to ask is because, you know,
Yeah.
Googling this and looking it up
They were
online,
not as dumb as we
information about
thought they
Planet
are.
X.
Binary star, right?
I've noticed
Yeah,
that
the bull
the
calf
people
of the
into the
sun,
top, it gets
the
more,
planet of the
it's
crossing.
50-50. A
Very,
lot of
very
people are saying it's
descriptive
real,
kinds of names.
and
Nibiru,
there's scientific
Nibiru,
proof that it is, while others are
Marduk.
saying that, you know, there's fear-mongers.
My goodness,
So I
those are,
just wanted to
you
get
know,
your
they
take
were
on
very
that.
observant people, and their names
I'm going to
for
side
this
with
thing
those who say it's
are quite
real.
interesting.
And I'll give you
And
the
in the
reasons
Bible,
now.
of course, bitterness or wormwood,
Number one,
because
the
the
designer
designer
of
of
the
the universe
chemicals.
says it's real. And sure enough,
John
they
1
have, and Colossians 1. Jesus Christ is the designer and wise master builder, general contractor,
a lot of ammonia,
of the
very
universe.
bitter.
And if he says wormwood
How
is there,
soon do you
Revelation 8,
Until
you can
this
bet your
actually
sweet
takes
ass
place.
wormwood is there because he says it's there. Well, he
I
knows.
No, I agree. I agree with
He
you
knows
100%
how to
on
build
that.
solar systems,
Without
and if he
access
knows
to
how to build
data,
solar
that was a
systems,
disaster.
and he uses a
So I-
particular
you know,
methodology,
you know,
with
with
the
the
plasma
gases,
charge
they
and
just
Coriolis
got a lot.
effect, and
without
gravitational
access to
attraction.
data.
In science,
On
you
and
always
on
take
and
the
on.
measures. These are the
Results
tools he
that you
uses
get
to build
because
solar systems.
Measurement
So
data.
he builds solar systems, and the solar systems are binary most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have access to that
Okay,
because the
and it
government
turns
doesn't
out
want
about
to let
82%
of the time.
They won't
and
tell
that number
people
is
what's
climbing.
going on.
Then
They track it, they know where it is.
You know, and
They
he
know what
says
it looks
it's there.
like,
You know,
what
it's
its
coming.
perihelion
That it has an
pattern
alkaline
is.
atmosphere and it's going to
But
throw
they
this
don't
junk around.
They don't want to let go of
You
that
can bet
information.
that somebody who knows what he's doing and can build solar systems
2009, 2012
is telling you the truth. So that's the first thing.
2014 and
Okay, the Revelation says so.
2017. But
All
do
right,
I
now,
know any of those to be
statistically, we
true?
want to
No.
look at it
Those
a little bit
just
different
things
than the
I've
way
been
you
able to
normally
gather.
get from fearmongers.
I wish I knew. I
They're
really
just
do.
looking
If
for
I knew,
headlines.
I would tell you.
Oh, believe me, I
That
think we
wasn't
all
my
wish we knew
motivation,
that.
but, you know,
Or
we'll
maybe
just
we
go
don't.
with
You know,
my motivation.
If
What I
you
was
did
looking
admit
to
that
do
you
was
would have a
explain
better
something,
handle
and it
on
turned out there
preparation
was
time,
no
not
other
climate
driver
preparation.
mechanism that could explain so
You know?
many things.
isn't it kind of weird
so well
how you got Doomsday
as this
Preppers
one
on
approach.
TV now? You got all these
And
different
then,
kind of shows. There's another one called
last year, the
Colony,
WISE satellite
and yet
finished
we're
gathering
moving
all
in
its
for-
information,
we're in
and they
the year
discovered
that everybody says
with that
could
piece
be
of
the end
equipment, there was
world,
100
December
brand new
21st,
brown dwarf stars
2012.
out there
Isn't
that
it
they
just
didn't know
weird
about.
how all of this
100 of
is just coming together. I mean, there
Whoa,
is a change
So that's a good
taking
piece of
place.
gear.
Weather
And in 6
phenomena.
months, it had mapped
you
the
just,
entire
you can't ignore
sky.
it.
And in our stellar
Yeah,
neighborhood,
getting
within
hairy.
50 parsecs of us,
It really is.
So let's
was it 50?
move
Yeah,
in
50
to
parsecs
when
of us.
this
We ended up
object,
with,
this brown dwarf
they could
star,
see 100 brand new
Nibiru,
stars, brown dwarf stars.
Planet
So they're
X,
quite
whichever
common.
you may be. When it
Closer
passes by
in,
Earth, I know you
about
said
82%
it's going to pass
of the
by
stars
and
that are
it's
out
gonna come
there
back
are
around.
red and brown dwarfs.
Break that down a
So
little
the little
bit.
stars
what's life
dominate
like what
the
is life going to
sky
be like on here, on planet Earth?
statistically
What's
on
gonna
a nose count basis.
Okay.
When you look up at a starry sky, you're
there
seeing
will
about
be,
18% of what's
some
really
preceding
there.
Events. Then there
Wow.
will be the
All
actual
right, now
physical
you
passage
grab
where
a hold
you
of
can
that.
see it. And again,
Now
this
here's
is
the
a
hard
big
part.
thing, so it
For those
dominates
who
the
want to be
sky,
naysayers,
depending on where we are orbitally.
would you go to Vegas and
if
bet
we could sit
consistently
in
when
the
the odds
June
were
21st
18% in your favor and 82% against you, or 83% against you? Would you bet that way? And
orbitally.
No way.
No way. Why? Because
It would
if
come
you knew
in a
ahead of
straight
time
line
the odds
right
were
up to
82%,
section 18,
83%
up from below
against
the
you,
ecliptic plane.
you don't take the
And then it
bet.
would appear to fly.
That's a bad bet. I mean,
just
it's
kinda
not
like
that people
straight
don't do
up,
that,
and
because
then
they
it would
do.
get closer and
But the
closer,
point is
and it
that
would
if
fly
you
straight
knew that that's
overhead.
what the odds were,
That's
you
what
wouldn't
it would
take the
look
bet.
like. But of
You're
course,
looking
the
for
Earth is
something a
always
little bit more
moving,
even odd.
roughly a degree per day.
Red and black or something.
Okay.
But you don't take an 82% chance against
we
you.
don't just sit still.
Okay.
We spin on axis
Yes.
plus. we orbit.
82% of the stars are
So
binary
the timing will change the
and
show.
small.
If we're out in the
So
March
we know
position
now
or the
that the
September
stars are
position,
binary, mostly
you
binary,
know, we're 90 million miles
and most
away
of them are small. You can't
from
even
that
see them.
solstice line.
And the brown dwarf stars, you
But
have to have
if we
infrared
were on the
capability to
solstice
see
line, we
them,
would fly
because you can't see
directly
them by a
overhead.
light signature.
You follow?
You have to look
I'm
at them in the near
following.
It
infrared.
depends on
So
how the timing
small
actually
stars
plays
dominate
out
on a nose
in terms
count
of what we
basis.
would see, where we are, where we
Right.
actually end up
Okay.
being
And if the
at the time
sun,
that this thing
if
passes.
it flips the
flying
odds
overhead.
back the other way,
Now,
the odds
it comes
then
through the
become
ecliptic plane, pierces up through the
82%
ecliptic plane,
that the
about
sun
halfway
is
between
also
the main
a binary,
asteroid belt and
like
the
82%
center line
of the other
orbit
stars.
of planet of Jupiter.
Does that make sense?
It makes
Okay,
a
and
lot
it's
of
coming
sense, yeah.
inbound on an
All right.
angle.
Then the question comes, okay, well, if the sun is, the odds are 82% or more, that the sun is a
If
binary.
we happen
Where
to be fairly
is
close,
sun's binary companion?
end of May, early June, and
Well,
the
that's
sun
getting
flies
deep right
Now you're
there.
asking the correct
overhead
question.
of the
You see it?
Yes, I
solstice
do.
line position.
So it's not a fear-mongering issue.
And, you know, it's going to be
It's
a
a-
very dramatic
it's
event
a
and very destructive.
Solar system construction
If we
issue
happen to be a
and
little
a
farther
statistical
away,
process
you know,
issue.
March,
So if we can't
April,
see the
May,
sun's binary
September,
companion,
October, on
then
either
it's not a
side
red
of,
dwarf because
you
they're
know, Earth's
visible.
orbital
Let's see a
position,
brown dwarf.
then it will be a
And
little
that
bit
means you
less
have to be looking
dramatic
for it
looking.
in the infrared
Okay,
part of
I
the
kind of
spectrum.
tend to think it's going to be a little bit
Okay.
more dramatic,
Okay.
which would
Right, so
suggest
anyway,
late
from a
May or
statistical point of view,
late June,
since
early
so
August.
many stars
But
are
I don't
binary
know. I
pairs,
don't know.
that's just
And,
how it is.
So the closer
I
we
wouldn't
are
want
to
to take the
solstice
fear-mongering
line, the bigger it's
label,
going to look.
but I wouldn't want to bet
It's going
against it either. It doesn't make sense.
Follow?
I'm following. Take a
that
step back
comes
here.
up
I mean,
right
I
at
know you
section
said you've
18,
been looking into this for
Flies
about
overhead,
40 years.
perihelion, right across
Well, the revelation,
over the
yeah.
top of
The problem
sun,
was
and
to
then comes back
integrate
down
it
and goes
correctly.
back through
Now,
the
what
ecliptic
what
plane.
about Planet X? I mean,
Yeah,
what
right ascension,
really got you
right
into the
ascension
topic?
6.
When did you first hear
Now, the
about
node
it?
of right
And,
ascension
just
inbound,
kind of break it down a
where
little
it comes
bit.
up through the plane.
Well, my
ecliptic
problem is,
plane.
again, how do you explain, what's the
It's,
driver mechanism
about
that can cause all these
3.95 to
physical
4.0
effects described in
astronomical
Revelation
units
6, Revelation
of
7,
Earth orbital
Revelation 8,
radiuses.
and Revelation
That
16?
puts it roughly
Not the
about
political
halfway
effects in chapter 9 and so on,
the main asteroid
but
belt in
the
Jupiter.
physical effects,
So
6,
that's where it
7, 8,
comes up
and
through.
chapter
And
16.
again, because
What
it's
drives that?
starting to curve over.
That was the big one.
In a kind of an angle.
It wasn't until
That's the description
our
by
good
the
buddy,
ancients of
you've
the
interviewed
planet
him,
of the
Dr.
cross.
Jason Rand,
Yes,
bull
yes,
cat.
came
many
out
times. Great guy.
with his book, yeah.
I hope that
And I
helps
realized
a little
he'd hit the
bit.
nail on the
Did you
head,
want to get into the
and what we had to do was
destructive
put it
effects
together correctly
Yeah,
and try to
wanted
fill out
touch
that
base on that. I know it
description.
might be some scary stuff, and
And that if
I
we
know
could,
the Bible and the book of Revelation, it
we might,
describes some
we might
scary
have
stuff,
something
but
in terms of the
scientifically, I mean,
grip.
what could happen?
We also
talk
had at
about
least one
earthquakes,
source from
tsunamis,
inside
what
the
are we looking
Pentagon,
at?
Oh, yeah.
not Beltway, but
I can
inside
give you
let's just say,
the main
connected
event,
insider.
The massive
He
destructive
told us
event,
that
as described
from the best
in
information that they had, the thing would be 60 times Jupiter's mass, and it would be
there was hail and fire
orbiting
mixed
at
with blood
90
that returned
degrees
to the Earth. One-third of
to
the
the
Earth was
ecliptic
burned
plane.
up. It was incinerated.
So that's where those diagrams
It's
came
so
from
bad
on the
that a
website.
third of the trees are just destroyed.
Okay?
Okay.
And
Right,
basically,
now we have to
everywhere
pose a little bit of other
grass
order
is
to it.
burned up.
If it is a body
Okay.
orbiting
Okay.
anything in space,
The
it will orbit
gravitational
and it
effect
will
is so
spin.
rough that one of
That's
the
what the
big
plasma energy of space
volcanic islands
does to bodies.
is
is shaken so badly, it just
makes some twirl on
thrown
the
into the
axis.
ocean. You're probably aware of
axis
the
then would be
danger that is
approximately,
out there in La
not
Palma
exactly,
Island, La Cumbre Vieja.
approximately,
Yes.
perpendicular
Okay, well, let's
to the
see what
orbital
would happen
plane.
if that one gets thrown into the
In other
ocean.
words, when it generates
the
an
same thing could
ellipse
happen
in three-dimensional
for,
space,
say, one of the Hawaiian islands.
that ellipse
Be thrown into the ocean.
Now, when you're
is
talking about that,
on
you
a
mean
plane.
like that part of volcano
Okay.
that could slide
And
down
that
into
plane
the
then
ocean
is at
and
90
that'd be
degrees to the
disastrous
ecliptic
for, like,
plane,
North Carolina or
generated
the
by
whole
the
eastern
sun.
United States. Is that what you're talking
These
about?
are the
its
United
planet.
States.
Yes.
Now,
So with
the
that information, I
Bible
started trying to impose
describes
order.
it
Okay,
like
what
that.
would we have?
It says,
And I started filling in the blanks.
something like a
And
great
then more and more
mountain burning
information
with
kept
fire
coming in
was
about
thrown into
brown
the
dwarfs
sea, and a third
in
of the
general.
sea became you know,
and
as we work our way through
the creatures that were in the sea that had life
the
died,
different
and third of the ships
pieces
were
of
destroyed.
information, the clues, you try
Now,
to
let's say that it's
construct
we're going
a basic idea of what it is that's going on. Well, the surface temperature is 700 degrees, it's 800 degrees, it's pretty hot.
Loaded
It's
with
not hot
ash
enough to give
and
off
water
light.
in between.
I mean, you can heat up a piece of iron,
If it erupts
700
coming
degrees,
up anywhere through these
you're not going to be able
concentric
to see it.
pipes, half of
It's
La
not bright
Palma
enough
Island
yet.
at that
You
point,
get it up
the
closer to
southern
the
end,
melting point,
will slide off
11 or
into the
1200
ocean.
degrees, now it starts to glow red.
Conservatively, it'll
You can see
produce
it
a
then.
wave that
Very
goes up
interesting, very interesting.
between
Okay.
1100
So then,
and 1500
by
feet.
putting these clues
When it
together,
genesis.
we come up with
Conservatively, they
a better
expect it to
profile
be
as to what it actually is. So it's a giant cannonball,
1100 and 1200
probably somewhere
meters.
between Saturn size and Jupiter
Okay.
size. I'm guessing
Meters.
more
At the point
towards
of jet,
Jupiter
that's
size.
trillions of tons.
Upper limit probably
of
around
volcanic
1.1 Jupiter's
sliding off into the
diameters
ocean.
max.
It produces
Could be
an
smaller.
odd tsunami that's
Plus or
not
minus, we
like
don't
a
know
normal
because
displacement
I
tsunami
don't have
like we
access to
saw in
classified
Japan.
information.
Okay.
It produces
And
a tsunami
it's
that's
a
different.
brown dwarf.
It's a surface
It's the
wave
binary
propagation.
companion of the sun. It's mostly
moves
iron.
across
So
the
it'll have,
ocean
if it's a
at the
Jupiter-sized
rate of
object,
around
it'll be probably in the
425
7
miles
to
an hour.
8 times Jupiter's mass.
That's amazing.
In that range.
Right, and when it
Okay.
hits the east coast,
Gotcha.
it'll run
And if it's
inland
1.1 Jupiter's
probably 20 or 25
diameters,
miles before
then it'll be
dissipated.
about 11 times Jupiter's mass.
Everything from
That's about the upper
edge of
limit.
the coast, all the
Lower
way in
limit,
for 20
Saturn
miles.
size. So anywhere from there on down.
All the ships on the ocean
Brown dwarf star,
that
alkaline
encounter this
atmosphere, gathers or
thing, the
cloud
only
junk,
ship I know that can
comets,
possibly survive it
asteroids,
is a
pieces of
submarine.
space junk,
It's a surface
all
wave
kinds of
propagation.
methane ice and
If that
crap
thing
out of
comes
the Oort
flying
cloud,
at
the
you and it's 1,000
trans-Neptunian
feet tall,
objects, and
it's
so on.
flying at you at
And when it comes in
425 miles.
on perihelion,
Oh my
it's
God.
loaded for bear
You
with
know a
lots of
ship
junk.
that can survive that.
It also seems to have a tremendous
not offhand.
capacitive
No,
charge.
Not offhand, no.
So
It's a submarine.
the juice
So
coming out of the
surface
sun
wave
plus
phenomena.
Wormwood's own
The
spin
wave that would hit
and its
Miami Beach at
volcanic action
1,100 meters
seems to
tall
loft
at
billions
La
of
Palma,
tons of highly
at the
charged
point of
iron
genesis, the
oxide
wave that would hit
particles
Miami Beach would be
out
over
into
800
its
meters.
upper atmosphere and from there out into
The
its
wave
disk.
that would hit New
So it
York City
creates
would be, I don't know, 400 or 500.
a reddish brown dust.
It's very tall.
And it has, so
just
it's got a
comes
kind of a rusty, dusty
Moving in at
disc to
400
it.
miles an hour and just hits
And
whatever it hits.
when the
Keeps
the
running for
Revelation
20 miles.
describes
And this is because of the
hail
gravitational
and
influence,
fire mixed
correct?
with blood, a
Well,
red color,
Part of it
that's
is
iron
that,
oxide talk.
well, we've known that this
Okay, it comes
stuff has
streaming into
happened
the atmosphere,
before. If
billions
you
of
look
tons
up
of
La
it.
Cumbre Vieja,
and it's a mess. And you see, so
we've learned some
destruction
things, if you
that
would,
these
by
kinds
piecing
of
the clues together
super
over the years.
tsunamis can do, and this
You know,
is the
surface
picture
wave
that emerges.
they're
and
very
it
deadly.
We finally
Very,
have
very
an
deadly.
answer
Quite
to
powerful.
what the driver
But see,
mechanism
part of
would
it is
be.
just using
What
the materials
prophecy,
that's already
the
here on Earth
Revelation
and then
prophecy
destabilizing it
describes
by having a
as
massive
something that's
rupture
going to
come up
happen.
through it.
We have a driver
It's already
mechanism that
loaded
explains
with
how
water.
it will happen.
It's already loaded
Out
with
of
ash.
all the people that I've interviewed
Okay?
about this, I
It's a
really
perfect
like the
storm
way
combination.
you put that. The driving
So what'll
mechanism
happen is
behind
the
the Bible's word.
spew of
I mean,
magma
just
comes
the
up
way you
from down
described
below,
that,
and you've
I
got
really
a
like
steam
that.
bomb.
Hey, I'm a mechanic, a machinist.
Well, just wide open.
And I like to
They'll
drive.
split the whole southern end of
And you like to
the
fly,
island
right?
of La
And I like
Palma
to
will just
fly.
slide off
What
into
can I
the
tell
sea.
you?
Now let me ask you
Now, the
this.
same thing
But
could
the
be
point
applied
is
to
that
the
if you've
Hawaiian
got these
islands on the
physical
other
effects,
side, do the
then
same
what
kind
makes
of damage
that
to the
happen?
Pacific
Exactly.
side.
That was my question.
So it doesn't matter
That's how I
whether it's
approached
the
the problem.
eastern
And
seaboard or
Jason
western
Rand was
seaboard.
the only one who even
Either
got
one
roughly
could
close.
do the damage.
The clue was
Oh,
that he
oh.
described
It says
the
something like
possibility of two
a great
sets of
mountain
events.
burning with fire.
That's what
thrown
clicked
into
with
the
me.
sea.
Now, what do you
Because
call
that's
that?
what
happens in the Revelation. There's a
Sounds
description
vaguely
of
familiar, isn't it?
very
Yeah,
raunchy
it
effects that
really
happen
is.
in chapter 8.
Okay.
And
how
you've got
can
a delay
and
for
what kind of
3.5
ship
years.
or boat?
Here comes another
Do you
set
know
of
that
effects
can
that happen
survive
in chapter
a
16.
surface wave coming at them? They're
400
raunchy.
miles
They're
an hour.
bad.
And
Not a one.
Jason
Not a
Rand
one.
was
It
the
can't
one
be
who
done.
kind of pointed
Once
out
you're
that
a submarine,
there
you go
would be two
down.
sets of these things. There's no way you're going to survive
Yes.
that. So
So
we
this
met
is-
when he was out
you
here a
say
couple of times.
surface waves, a lot
Had
of
him here
people
at my
might
house,
not
and we
understand
met
that because
down in L.A.
I'm
and we
familiar.
talked
I'm
it over,
not
and I
even.
asked him if it'd be
You know,
okay
I
if
don't
I
even
took this
understand
and
it that much because I'm
tried
used
to
to
see
when I
if
hear
we
about a
flushing it out and
tsunami,
make it make
it's
some
under
sense.
the
And
water
he agreed.
until it
And we
starts
kicked it back and
approaching
forth,
the
you know.
coastline and then it starts to rise.
Yeah, Jason's a
Now,
great
what is
guy.
the difference?
Great guy.
Is there a difference here we're
I
talking
wanted to
about?
ask you this,
I owe it that. One is a surface wave propagation propagated at the surface for it. The other is propagated by a flip of the two sets of plates underneath.
That's the one
One
that really
bumps up, the other
hard.
bumps down. But
And
the
it
one
makes
that bumps
sense, the
up
perihelion
displaces
maneuver.
all the water
So you've
that's
got a set of
overhead.
inbound effect.
So this is going to be a
6, 7, and 8,
massive,
and then you've got
massive
a set
wall
of
of water
outbound
that
effect.
would be coming.
Right,
Chapter
Wow.
16.
But it's moving so fast. It just makes perfect sense. The
Now, we're
700
gonna get into
kilometers,
that in a minute, but
700
I wanna
something
ask you
kilometers
about
per hour.
the time
It's about
frame of
425
this.
miles an hour.
When will we be able to
being on a
actually
jet
get
This massive wall of water
What will it look like?
coming all the way
I know
across
you
the
said
ocean.
right
Now, it
now we
does
can't see it,
dissipate some
but
as it comes across. It's
what
not,
do we do?
you know, it's
What
not
will it be
1100
like?
meters.
Well,
When it
the big rock
arrives,
fall, probably
it
with
might only be 400 or
what looks like
500
volcanic
meters when it arrives.
fissures and stuff on the
That's
surface.
a 1,000-foot fall of
You
water,
know,
a wall of
magma
water.
pouring out in patchy ball kind of
How are
thing.
you going to outrun that?
It's iron.
Jump in a plane and fly like
again,
hell.
700-800
Or
degrees.
just not be
It's very
there.
hot. There's no escaping that. If you're within 20-25 miles of the coast,
It'll have,
as it approaches the ecliptic plane,
it's going to happen all the
and it starts catching a blast of the solar wind, it's going to begin to throw a coma.
U.S. government has taken no preparations
whatsoever,
whatsoever
and we'll get
to set up any kind of warning whatsoever
a red glow
for the
around
people that live within 20 miles of the eastern seaboard.
god-awful long,
Well, how many people live within 20 miles of the eastern seaboard?
out behind it
That'll probably be multi-stranded, and it will go millions and millions of miles out behind it. So it's going to be a raging, screaming-looking thing.
It's another
How
guy,
big would that be?
and one of his beliefs.
How big
was
would that
why
look
the
in
government wasn't saying this?
Well,
stuff
the
was kind of
Colbrin
population control.
Bible
I mean, would
describes
you
it
agree
as
with that?
taking
I
up,
mean, why
I think
wouldn't
it's something like
they warn the
20% of your field of vision when you look up at as good as mine.
Wow.
If I had, it depends on what level you want to answer that question as it flies overhead. There's a dark spiritual force that actually is in control of the political and financial systems of planet Earth. Very big and very impressive. And that dark spiritual force has tremendous amount of sway over the upper echelons and the hidden echelons
let me go back for a minute.
of money and power
We're talking
on planet
Planet
Earth.
We're
Okay?
also talking Wormwood,
And producing
same thing.
these massive
Nibiru?
sacrifices
That always
of
comes
people
up with Planet
is
Earth.
same thing. Nibiru was the name used by the Sumerians. Zechariah
Well, what is
Sitchin
the start date? I
made
mean,
that
we talking
popular.
March?
And Nibiru is a very good descriptor from the ancient culture. It means, if I could help you with a little bit with literally, it means try to give you a grip on what this is like. The crossing. He is so evil. And instead of going around the rosy like the other planets do, and he tries to do everything he can. This thing is at 90 degrees to it, so it cuts across all the others and cause pain and suffering.
Gotcha.
And so its description is from the ancient culture, Nibiru, the planet of the principality rights. It's actually a very accurate description. It's an eyewitness description of the orbital pattern during perihelion maneuver. It looks like it crosses the sky the wrong way. So maybe the planets are supposed to go around this way. But at the moment, he's still doing it right overhead. Do you remember in the Temptations of Christ? Yeah, it is. It says he took him up, and so that's what that means. Nibiru is the planet showed him all the kingdoms of the world in an instant of time.
Now, what effects?
Remember
you can have
that?
it all.
Well,
you
just
can
one
have
more.
it all.
Hang on, let me.
Okay, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but and I'll give these to you. It's also referred to by the ancient if you'll bow down and worship as Marduk. M-A-R-D-U-K,
think about the absurdity of the
and that
offer at
means
the moment.
the bull calf of the sun. Satan, who's a fallen angel, addressing the designer of the universe, who owns the
Binary
planet.
Star, right?
And the only thing that Satan has to offer is the political and financial resources of the kingdoms that control the political machinations. Nibiru. Of the people on the planet. But the planet itself belongs to, they were very observant people, to the Lord Jesus. And their names for the offer is absurd. Interesting. And then the Bible, of course, bitterness or wormwood. What's really telling that can throw around a lot is not that the Lord Jesus, and sure enough, refuses the offer, so much as that he does not challenge. Here's the hard part: ammonia. He does not challenge. Very bitter. Satan's power.
How soon do you think
offer up
until this
the
actually
political
takes
systems
place?
of planet Earth?
Passing. Comes down
I
to
don't.
free
I'd
will.
have to guess. I tried once to guess already without access to
free will.
classified data.
Yeah,
But Satan would not allow you to exercise free will. I can give you scuttlebutt guesses.
Do you
Or
think
just scuttlebutt.
Do you think the president of
Without
the
access.
United States?
In science,
do you
you always
think they're
take the
predetermined?
measured results if you can get them. Because I think they're sort of like pre-sold out because you have this dark entity who wants to control the political process. I don't have access to that. Occasionally it gets away from them, like when the United States became an independent country and enjoyed God's blessing as a sort of an intervention for a while. But now he's, he's kind of reimposing his dark will. The best waypoints that I could come up with were 2009, 2012,
kind of being taken away from
2014,
America,
and 2017. Not really. There's still a lot of Christians out there, but the Christians are going to be removed from the planet.
That's what I'm talking about. You got schools that they don't want to say,
I wish I knew. I really do. If I knew, I would tell you.
There was something I heard about. We all wish we knew that. What was it? Or maybe veterans that passed away that they didn't want
it meant that you would have a better handle on preparation time to climb for preparation.
Biblical things said at funerals. Isn't it kind of weird about how you got doomsday
but
preppers on
people are free to
TV
choose
now?
whatever they want.
That's
That's their choice.
shows. There's another one
But
called
the point is this: that there is this dark, malevolent spirit who does hold principality, who does powers of influence and sway over the political and financial systems of the world.
All of this
he does know the world.
Coming together.
The Bible says, the Psalms say that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. The world and they that dwell therein. Getting hairy. But the political systems and the financial systems, a lot of the symbology, Satan holds the power over that. And it is a tremendous amount of influence.
Planet X, whichever
so
it may be.
What you've got is this contest of wills.
I know you said
and these dark principality things, this is going to be brought to an end.
Break that down a little bit.
And judgment is coming, and it's sad.
What is life going to be
a lot of loss of life.
On planet Earth?
It's just a sad
What's
thing.
going to happen?
But at the same time, there is the offer of salvation. There's the offer of safety that the Lord Jesus promises to His people.
The actual physical
And the
passage
Christian church is going to be pulled off the planet,
so it dominates
will
the sky,
physically disappear.
depending on where we are orbitally.
And I place that event in Revelation 7, just prior to the judgment events that open up in Revelation 8.
Sit there.
So it'll be a last-minute thing, but it will be in time to escape the judgment.
Not move orbitally.
We're talking about
Christian
the
church will
rapture.
be gone.
It would come
So
in a
if you
straight
want out of
line,
here, and you
right
don't want to be on planet Earth
up from below
when all hell is
ecliptic
breaking
plane.
loose, when the planet is being burnt to a crisp and roasty toasty fried and shaken and baked, and if you don't want to be part of that, and you don't want to be part of the satanic system that comes in afterwards, the Illuminati, all these dark players, then the offer that the Lord Jesus
we don't
presents and makes very clear with the Apostle Paul and also here in Revelation 7.
So
that's a good offer. That's a good deal. He's already paid for your ticket.
If we're out in the
Do you have to
March
accept
position
it?
or the September
No,
position,
you don't have to accept
we're
it.
90 million
It's a
miles
free
away
ticket out of town
from that
for
solstice
time
line.
and for eternity.
But
you
if
do
we were
have
on
to
the
swear
solstice
allegiance
line,
to
it would
Him,
fly directly overhead.
not to yourself, not to
follow.
Satan,
It
not to
depends
money,
on
not to cars,
how the timing actually
not to
plays
whiskey or
out
women. You have to
in
swear
terms of
eternal
what we would
allegiance
see,
to the Son
where
of God.
we are, where we
And
actually
if you're
end
willing
up
to do
being
that, Romans 10, 9,
by the
and
time
10,
that this thing
then
passes,
He will take you off
flying
planet
overhead.
just before
Now,
the main
it comes
judgment.
through the ecliptic plane,
I
pierces
wanted
up
to
through
go
the
to a
ecliptic
question
plane,
from Facebook.
about halfway between the
It's
main
from Mike
asteroid
from
belt
Florida, just talking
and the
about
center line of the orbit of the planet
pretty
of
deep here, and
Jupiter.
I'm really enjoying it, I have to
Okay,
say.
and it's coming inbound on an
I don't want to
angle.
bore you, but you did ask the question.
You're not boring me at all here, but Mike from Florida, he's curious if you're
If
going
we
to discuss
happen to be fairly
Tiamat,
close,
Tiamat. I don't know how
end
to
of
pronounce
May,
that.
early June,
Tiamat.
this thing flies
Tiamat, okay, and
overhead
then the
of
Anunnaki,
the
okay.
solstice
And
line
you already
position.
mentioned Zacharias
then,
15.
it's going to be
Supposedly,
a very
one of
dramatic
the
event
moons
and
of
very
Planet
destructive.
X hit
If we
Tiamat.
happen to be a little farther
And the
away,
planet used to be between Mars and
March,
Jupiter.
April,
The
May,
result pushed half of
September,
Tiamat
October,
into
on
what
either
is now
side,
Earth
in
and the rest of the
orbital
asteroid
position,
belt. He
then
says
it will
it is
be a little
also
bit less dramatic
supposedly
looking.
caused, or
Okay,
it also
I kind of tend to think it's going to be a
supposedly
little bit more
caused
dramatic,
half of Mars
which would suggest
to
a
be
late May
smoothed
or
out from the blast.
late June,
And he says our moon
early August.
is
But I
the
don't
only
know. I
surviving
just don't
moon
know.
of Tiamat.
And
the Anunnaki created
so the closer we are to the solstice line, the bigger it's going to look.
in their
It's
image
going to appear.
to mine gold
You
for
follow?
them as slaves.
Because it comes up right
what
ascension
are your
18,
thoughts on that?
flies overhead, perihelion, right across over the top of the sun, and then comes back down and goes back through the
Try to
ecliptic plane.
dissect it the best we can.
At right ascension, along right ascension 6. The most recent, now the node of right ascension, inbound, where it comes up through the plane, ecliptic plane, testing of the moon rocks is shows that about 3.95 to 4.0. So the moon is a chip off the Earth during the early formation of the solar system. And that puts it roughly about halfway. Body. It's the same between the main asteroid belt and Jupiter.
And that's scientifically
So that's where it comes up through.
Just finished
Again,
that.
because
This was just a few weeks ago. They went back and re-examined it.
You know, that's the description by the
chromatography,
ancients, planet of the cross,
very sensitive instrumentation that can
bull
pick up
calf
on
of
stuff.
the sun.
And trying to measure
I
what's
hope that
in there and
helps a little bit.
from the moon rocks.
Did you want to get into the destructive effects that it will
Moon is
produce?
made of the same exact
Yeah,
stuff that the Earth is
wanted
made
you
out
to
of.
touch base on that.
Same
I
kinds
know
of
it might
rocks
be
and
some
minerals.
scary stuff, and
That
I know
means
the
that
Bible
the
and the book of
moon then
Revelation,
was
it
part of the
describes some
Earth
pretty
in the
scary
early
stuff, but
formation,
scientifically, I mean, what could
of
happen? Are we
moon
talking
and Earth,
earthquakes,
of
tsunamis?
the
What are we
solar
looking at
system.
here?
Long years ago. I can give you the main events, the massive destructive events as described in Revelation 8. Potential planet when the first thing that happened, it says there was hail and fire mixed with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. 1/3 of the earth was burned up. It was incinerated. Crosses through the ecliptic. It's so bad that 1/3 of the trees are just destroyed. Main asteroid belt. And basically everywhere it hits, the green grass is just burned up. Between the main asteroid belt and Jupiter.
I gotcha.
The gravitational effect is so rough that one of the big volcanic islands is shaken so badly it gets thrown into the ocean. You're probably aware of the danger that is out there in La Palma Island, La Cumbre Vieja.
Oh, yes.
Because of the massive
let's see what would happen if that one gets thrown into the ocean. The same thing could happen for, say, one of the Hawaiian Islands. Could be thrown into the ocean.
Now, when you're talking about that, you mean like that part of volcano
as
that
wormwood
could
starts
slide
making its
down into
cuts,
the ocean, and then
sooner or later
that'd be
there'd be a
disastrous
trip
for like
when
North
it would come up
Carolina,
through
or the
there.
whole eastern
And
United
whatever was
States.
there
Is that what you're talking
Eastern
about?
United States.
Yeah.
Now,
You follow?
the Bible
Yeah.
describes an event like that.
That's
It
the first
says,
problem.
something like a
second
great
problem
mountain
is,
burning with fire was thrown into the
you don't
sea.
even have to
1/3
be
of the sea
in the
became,
asteroid belt
to
catch
blood
hell
red.
from this thing.
1/3 of the creatures that were in the
Mars
sea
has
that had
suffered
life
horribly
died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed.
If
Now
you
let's say
compare
that
the
it's
north
La
side of
Cumbre
Mars
Vieja. We're going to
to the
pick
south
on
side
that
of
one
Mars,
from La Palma Island.
Mars is
There's
just
a series of concentric volcanic from all the junk loaded with ash and water on its inbound maneuvers. And if anything shows up coming up anywhere through these concentric pipes, half of La Palma Island at that point, the southern end, will slide off into the ocean. conservatively, it'll produce a wave that goes up between 1,100 and 1,500 feet at the point of genesis.
Millions of cubic miles.
Conservatively, they expect it to be between 1,100 and 1,200. 1,100 and 1,200 It reforms into a ball, but the point is that millions of cubic miles at the point of Mars, that's trillions of tons, the northern part of volcanic ash cap of Mars, sliding off into the ocean, is missing. It produces an odd tsunami that's not like a normal displacement tsunami like we saw in Japan. It's just so big. It produces a tsunami that's different. It's a surface wave that Wormwood was there from the beginning of the solar system across the ocean at the rate of around what was orbiting 25 miles an hour. The location of the asteroid belt.
Even hearing that.
Because it was not going to be part of the east coast of this world. It'll run inland sooner or later, probably on one of the orbital 25 miles before Wormwood was going to get it. And just everything from the edge of the coast, because it was too close, all the way in for 20 miles.
Do you think Mars was inhabited?
All the ships on the ocean that encounter this thing,
how it destroyed
the only ship I know that could possibly survive it is a submarine. Well, it has made an awful mess. Propagation. When Wormwood gets close to Mars, it produces things like Olympus Mons, which is taller than Everest, 425 from electrical discharge and displacement, and you know a ship that can build up a mound, like an electric discharge out of a welder. Just builds up a mound of, so it's a surface wave phenomenon and a loss of the wave that material on the other side. If it's 1,100 meters tall, it can produce huge, deep electrical discharge scorch marks. 800 meters. A good example is the wave that we hit in New York City on Mars. I don't know, 400, huge, gigantic canyon. It just comes, and all the material is missing. 400 miles an hour. It just hits whatever it hits and keeps running away at 20 miles.
And this is because of the gravitational.
You'd like to say, well, that looks like erosion. Well, the problem is there's no lakes there. There's no river going through, and there's no place where oceans would have been. If you look up, so it's an electrical discharge event, and you see with this huge discharge, these kinds of, because Wormwood is such a massive capacitive body, a surface wave tsunami, additional energy when it gets in close, very, very deadly. Complements of the sun and the solar wind and stuff. But see, part of it is, and it just using the material that's already here on Earth and then destabilizing that by having a massive rupture come up through it. You wouldn't have had to have already loaded with water to have destruction out there. It's already loaded with ash. It wouldn't have mattered what was orbiting in. It's a perfect storm combination. The main asteroid belt. So what'll happen or either one of the others, the minor ones either. Because whatever it was that was there, Wormwood was going to absolutely cream bomb. That thing was going to blow just wide open. That'll split the whole southern end of the island of La Palma. Our problem is that into the sea. Now, the same thing could be applied to the Hawaiian Islands. That God just created us in His image. Damage to the Pacific side. It says male and female He's created them. The eastern seaboard or western another interesting thing, and he takes credit for that. You follow? Of sending people to do that or whatever. You can account for it any way you want. Burning with fire. But it was like it was his intention that there be humans here. And then we have a separate race of people that are created about 1,600. And how can it? And what kind of 1,658 years before the flood of Noah? Surface wave coming out of the Adamic line of people. That's a separate genetic race. Not a one. And the Bible traces that. I think it's Revelation. You go down. Genesis. No way you're going to survive 5, isn't it? I think it is.
Anyway, when you say surface waves, a lot of people might not
The
understand that.
Nephilim were before.
I'm familiar.
They were already here.
I don't even
the whole separate genetic line of people are created. The Adamic race. That's where Noah and his kin come from.
The coastline.
Genesis 5.
Now, what is the difference?
So, I mean, if you use the periodicity of Wormwood, and I'm using a periodicity of propagated at the surface. 3,657 by a slip of the tectonic plates underneath. One bumps up, the other bumps down. Well, if you use that as a period, and you go back, take that epoch, and go back at Earth's history, and let's say that we were basing it on 2012. Moving so fast. Then the first 700 kilometers, closest bypass would have been 1,645 BC. 425 miles an hour. Then before that would be 5302 BC. That would be Noah. Coming all the way across the ocean. Now it does. Then 8959 as it comes across. It's not. That gets you back into the Atlantis civilization. When it arrives,
very interesting.
It might only be 400 meters when it arrives. Yeah, that's 1,000-foot fall. And there's a lot of evidence for Atlantis that keeps popping up. How are you going to all around Bimini, all around south of Bimini, like hell, all around Cuba,
or just not be there.
No, south of Florida. If you're within 20-25 miles of the coast, you're streets and stuff off the western end of Cuba and all the buildings. The whole civilization was down there at night. Where was they going with streets down to the bottom of the ocean? And the answer is they weren't on the bottom of the ocean when they were building them. Warning whatsoever for the people that live within 20 miles of the eastern seaboard. Well, how many people live within 20 miles of the eastern seaboard? Answer, 40 million. Thou catcheth on quickly. Now, how would that work?
I've interviewed so many
the Earth is composed of a core.
Jason Q. Rand is not the one that I'm referring to. It's another guy. And one of his,
I think most of your geologists would agree with that. And then around the molten core, you have a mantle.
kind of population
the best way to
control.
describe the mantle would be as a,
why wouldn't they?
what do you call it, a Play-Doh, moldable.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Now you have this massive
what level you want to answer that question, because
it can pull.
There's a dark spiritual force that actually is in control of the political and financial
pulling the other side down simultaneously.
And that dark spiritual force has
one of the
tremendous amount of
descriptions said that
sway
Atlantis went
over
down
the
in less than
upper
a day.
echelons and the hidden echelons of money and power on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what does it do?
And producing these
pulls
massive sacrifices
on the
of
core
people
and on the mantle with its magnetic and its gravitational field.
Now what is this?
And it distends or shapes the mantle underneath the lithosphere.
We're talking about Satan himself.
The lithosphere would be like an
If I could
eggshell,
help
only
you
much,
with a little bit with
thinner.
this and to try to give you a
So
grip
whatever
on what
the
this
shell
is
is riding on,
he is
in terms
so
of,
evil,
mantle
so
Play-Doh,
sold out, that his soul
the
and only
Play-Doh
functions
pushes
to try
up,
to do everything
then that
he
part
can
rises. So you
to
can have
defy
mountains rising up out of the
and cause
ocean.
grief,
They can
and
be
cause
thousands of feet
pain
tall.
and suffering.
Or you can have mountains being
On planet
pulled
Earth.
down under the ocean.
Right now he holds
They used to be thousands of feet tall.
principality
Except
rights,
now they're underwater.
rulership rights here
So,
on
they're not
planet
as
Earth.
impressive.
That is going to be
Well, and it can happen in one move. It can
So
pull
this
one
judgmental
side
process
under
is
and
part
pull
of
the other side up.
the house planes
One
that
stroke.
brings that principality.
This is a powerful,
to an end.
powerful.
But at the
heavy,
moment he still
heavy,
holds those
strong,
rights.
Do you remember in the Temptations of
It
Christ?
is probably
It says
responsible
he took him
for
up
dividing the
on a high
continents
mountain
the way we
and
have
showed
them
him
now.
all the kingdoms of the world
You
in an
follow?
instant of
I'm
time.
following you. Yes.
And
yes,
this
you
is
can
a
have it all.
shaping
You can
tool
have it
for
all.
our
Just
solar
how.
system.
Yeah, but and I'll give these to
Very,
you.
very
They're mine to give to you.
interesting
If you'll
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
how
it
it sort of all
worship me.
fits together, doesn't it?
Oh, it
Now
is.
you have
You're
to
putting
stop and think about the
pieces
absurdity of the
puzzle
offer at the
together, no doubt
moment.
about it.
So wait a
A lot
minute.
of
You've got
interesting tidbits
Satan,
here.
who's
I wanted to go
a
back
fallen
to
angel,
because we're getting some more
addressing the
questions
designer of the universe,
missing
who owns
from
the
New
planet.
Hampshire. It says,
And the only thing that Satan has to offer is the
those
political and
mysterious
financial
booms
resources
heard in Wisconsin
of the
may
kingdoms
even
that
felt.
control the political
Do you think the
machinations
government is building
of the people on the
state
planet. But the planet
underground or
itself
something,
belongs
or is this a direct
to the designer,
effect
to the Lord
of the
Jesus.
Of Planet X?
So the offer is absurd.
My guess would be that the booms are mostly
Now, what's really
underground
telling
we have
is
a vast
not
underground
that the Lord
tunnel
Jesus
complex now that covers the entire
refuses the
United
offer
States.
so much as that he does not
right here,
challenge.
just north of us, to the
Here's the hard
mountains that are
part.
just north of
He
us
does
at
not
Tehachapi.
challenge. There's
Satan's
a port
power
there that
to
goes down
offer
into a
up
tunnel that runs
the
all the way up to
political
China
system of
Lake,
Earth.
many, many miles away.
Comes
China
down to
Lake
free
then is
will.
tied into the
It comes down
complexes
to, like,
in Utah
free will.
and tied
But
into
Satan would not allow you to
which
exercise
is
free will
down
if he had a
in,
choice.
Arizona,
Do you
where
think-
Jesus and from there
Do you
over to
think the
Dulce, New
presidents
Mexico,
of the United States,
and so
do you
on
think
all the
they're
way
free to
across the United
tunnel?
States. Goes all the way to Washington, D.C. Well, I think they're sort of like
There's
pre-sold
one
out
tunnel
because you have
complex
this
that comes
dark
in
in San
San
Diego
Diego
that
that
control
controls
the
the
political
political
process.
sail a
ship into it. Occasionally it gets
Wow.
away from him, like
This
when
is
the
news to me.
United States
Sail
became
submarines
an independent country and
under
enjoyed God's
the
blessing
land
as
of the
sort of an
US
intervention
and
for a
bring
while.
them out to the eastern
But now
seaboard.
he's,
I think
he's
opening
kind of
country out
reimposing
somewhere around the
his
dark
dark
will.
area, but if you
Don't
would.
quote me on that
Seems
because
like
the answer is I
slowly,
don't know. But
Christianity
they've got
is
an
kind of
opening
being taken
somewhere
away
out there
from
that
America,
lets them go
too.
under the land.
Not really. There's
And
still a
come
lot
up.
of Christians out
So they
there,
probably
but
have,
Christians are going to be
pressure doors
removed
all
from
over
the
the
planet.
place so
That's
they
what I'm
can
talking about.
get
You
the
got
subs from
schools
the
that
West
they don't want
Coast
to
to the
say,
East
you know,
Coast
under
quickly.
God, the Pledge of
And they
Allegiance.
just go right underneath
There was something
the
I heard
U.S.
about,
They don't sail through the
what was it?
Panama
people,
Canal. They don't
veterans
sail around
that
the Horn.
passed
They don't
away,
sail into
that
the Arctic. They go
didn't
right
want
under the
certain
U.S.
biblical,
So they've been
I forget
spending
what it was. I wish I had it
literally
with me.
trillions
Certain
of
biblical
dollars
things said at
building
funerals.
an
I don't know if you know
underground
about that.
system.
But people are free
So
to
the
choose whatever they
government
want.
can survive.
That's their choice.
Their
But
idea
the
is
point
that government should
that there
survive
is this
before
dark,
anybody else survives.
malevolent spirit
I'm sort of
who does
wondering what they're
hold
going to do when they don't have any
principalities, who does
people.
hold powers
It's just
of
government
influence
with
and
no
sway
people to be
over the
government
political and
over, but
financial
they didn't think about
of
that
the world.
Basically, the
He
most
doesn't own the world.
corrupted people on this
The
planet.
Bible said, the Psalms.
Well, it's like we said, there's a malevolent spirit that holds principality
The
rights
world and they that dwell therein.
over the political and financial systems and the financial systems.
Okay,
You know, it's not a joke. He still holds those rights
power over that.
So he
And
has
it is a
the right
tremendous amount
to
of
influence them.
Oh, he's exploiting
Okay.
those rights. You
So
can tell.
is
What you've got is
exploiting
this
those rights,
contest of
you know,
wills. And these dark
to beat the band. He's
principalities
really
things,
going after it.
This is going to be
He's
brought to
been
an
doing
end.
it for a long time. It's not a joke.
Judgment
He
is
offered
coming,
to give
and
them
it's sad.
all the
There's gonna be a lot of
political
loss of life.
systems.
It's just
The only
a sad
problem
thing.
was that the planet they were
But
both
at the same
standing
time, there
on
is the offer
belonged to the Lord
of
Jesus. It didn't
salvation.
belong to
There's the
Satan.
offer of
Satan could only
safety
offer the,
that
you
the
know,
Lord
the symbolism,
Jesus
the
promises
politics.
to his people.
He couldn't offer the
Because the
money.
church is going to be
He couldn't
sold
offer
off
the
the
planet
planet.
because he didn't own it. He doesn't own the planet.
physically
That's not
disappear.
his.
Now this
Doesn't own the
next,
solar
I place
system.
that
That's not
event
his. In Revelation
this
7,
next
just
question
prior
that's coming
to
in here really brings
the
me
judgment
back.
events
This
that
is a
open up in Revelation 8.
He said,
okay, a last-minute thing,
years
but it will
ago,
be in time
I heard
to
that
escape
the government
judgment.
was planning on moving the
The
nation
church will be gone.
Pentagon,
So if you want out of here and you don't want to be on planet Earth
because of a planet
when
X
all hell is
passing.
breaking loose,
and you know
when
what?
the planet
That
is being
brings me
burnt
back.
to a
That makes me
crisp,
think because
yes, it is true.
yeah, because when I was interviewing Jason
if you don't want to be part of that,
about that,
and you don't want to be part of the satanic system that comes in afterwards, the Illuminati, there's an underground complex under the Denver airport, and it's huge, it's massive. Again, it ties down to Dulce, it ties up to Utah, it ties to Washington. There's huge. They have two-lane highways underground. That's a good offer. That's a good deal. They have levels going down sometimes for a mile. Do you have to accept it? They have. It's all tied together. It's a free ticket underground for time and for eternity. Under Denver, that's why the cost of the Denver airport has been so exorbitantly expensive. Not to Satan, not to money, that's why the complex is so huge. They're still digging more tunnel complex under Denver airport. Allegiance to the Son of God. And they bring that stuff up to the surface and dispose it on the surface. 10, 9, and 10, but, that's what's going on up there. The reason is that Denver sits up on, not too far from the Continental Divide. So Denver's on a plane fairly high up. And they're basically trying to get move the government away from the coast because, I don't want to bore you, Washington's going to get wiped out if La Cumbre Vieja gets thrown into the sea, like the Revelation describes, a mountain with fire, burning with fire, thrown into the sea. I mean, that's going to be a mess. The whole eastern seaboard gets wiped out. They've already moved the CIA there. There was no choice. They either went or they lost their jobs.
The CIA, I do remember that. And
they're being moved in. Yeah, they're being moved to the Denver area. And all the government functions will have, a Denver analog. And they just pick up and fly right into the Denver airport, right underground, and they're safe in their little holes.
Half of Mars. So does the president know this? The president of the United States, and he says, or even global elite leaders, is the only surviving moon.
Yes and yes.
And the Inanarchy created from a primitive ape.
Well,
it is. The
interesting thing is how they got him elected. Man born in Kenya. Shoot.
What are your thoughts on that?
Jeez, talk about amazing stuff that's going on. Questions here. Let me approach it. Okay, the first part.
Try to dissect it the best.
And the moon and so forth.
The most recent. When we're talking about building underground facilities and canals and all this stuff, I mean, none of this would matter if Planet X collided with our planet. Is that possible?
So the moon is a chip off the Earth during the early formation. If you look at the diagram, okay, it comes up between the main asteroid belt and Jupiter, about halfway in between there. That's the node of right ascension. Comes in there at right ascension 18 and comes up through at an angle. By the time it gets to the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Earth, it's already quite high up above the ecliptic plane. And it reaches its perihelion zenith, if you would, highest point, directly over the top of the Sun. So by the time it comes in across the Earth, it's already quite a ways up. Now again, it will look big and look imposing. It's really quite a bit, quite a ways away. And from the positioning of its perihelion maneuver and the gripping power of the Sun has the stronger hand. So no, it doesn't have the ability to destroy the Earth. It can't grip the Earth, but it can shake things up, which it does. It can throw a lot of garbage, which it does. It can roll because of the discontinuity layer between the mantle and the lithosphere, it can actually roll the surface of the lithosphere right around. And you can have a pole shift if it grips it and makes it slide. There's a slip and slide layer underneath the lithosphere, right at the mantle. It's very slimy, like a grease layer, wet grease layer. And the whole lithosphere can actually slide over. I mean, at one time, Brazil used to be at the South Pole. At another time, South Africa used to be at the South Pole. They've picked up these mastodons up in Siberia, frozen solid, and they open up the stomach and there's lotus blossoms in there. But those are tropical plants. So at one time Siberia used to be down where the tropics are. Okay. So it can actually roll the planet over for a while and cause huge problems, massive grief, causing tremendous grief, where it can slide the surface of the planet around because it's riding on a grease layer. So things are not as stable when Wormwood enters the town because it starts throwing all this gravity and throwing all this magnetism around is just a mess, and all the space junk and poisonous alkaline chemicals. It's just horribly destructive.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, the other thing,
you think Planet X might have had something to do with the separation of that massive
Mars
continent?
Sure.
has had millions
all you do is just split it off, make them slide, sink one portion, raise another. It reforms into a ball, but the point is that millions of cubic miles of Mars off the northern part, the skull cap of Mars,
cities underwater,
is missing. Yeah.
Pangea.
That's how destructive. Massive. If you look at the outline of the western coast of Africa and the eastern coast of South America, they almost fit with lock and key. Was there. That's a very popular kind of theory down in Latin America. Made any difference most geologists, universities down there, they dig on that. Up here, we can't have that. We have to have uniformitarianism, that everything that's going on right now has been going on for millions and millions of years, so that we can have evolution and revolution and revolution and slow change. We do not allow anything catastrophic to happen.
Do you think Mars was inhabited?
Yeah, because we're academic, and this is what we say.
So we're just seeing basically how it destroyed
we're academic. We have PhDs, so we can say these things. Well, it has made an awful mess. Well, when wormwood gets close to Mars, it produces a geologist goes down and says, geez, Louise, something very heavy has sat on top of this planet. And displacement. And he looks at the break and says, build up a mound. Oh, that's interesting. Like an electric discharge out of a welder. One time the ice sheet built up a mound for the polar ice cap on one side, came all the way down across the top of Canada, landed right in America. If you follow the Missouri River, that was the southern edge of the ice sheet. And from that point north, a good example the ice went up between 11, 12,000, 15,000 feet. Huge, gigantic canyon. That's where the Missouri River sits, at the edge of what used to be the ice sheet. There's the trace line of it. I don't know where it went. 10,000 feet up? Dang. That was a big piece of ice. It looks like erosion. So the wormwood has had the ability to cause grief. No river going through, ice ages and garbage and oceans, whatnot. It's just caused a tremendous amount of grief. It can roll the planet over on its side with this huge and it has done charge. Because wormwood is such a massive capacitive body, collecting additional energy when it gets in close to complements of the sun and the solar wind and stuff. And it just blasts Mars. Get away from the coasts, just makes it awful. Store up canned food and dry goods. You wouldn't have had to have a TMI spare underwear, to have destruction out there. Toothpaste, toilet paper. It wouldn't have mattered what was orbiting in fresh water. Now the main asteroid belt, or either one of the others, the minor ones either. Because whatever it was that was there, they can be watched. What do you do 7 years later when everybody's out of business and no cotton farming being done, and everybody runs out of underwear? Well, our problem is that how do you get the paper business started all over again? Paper mills. That God has created us in His image. All over again. It does say that. It says male and female, He's created them. Civilization has a lot of wonderful things. How to get high-tech industry started. How to get high-tech biology restarted. There's just people to do that or whatever. You can be wiped away any way you want from all kinds of different mechanisms. But it was His intention that there be humans here. I mean, again, we talked about a surface wave propagation that comes in if you just throw one of the volcanic vents from La Palma Island into the ocean. 58 years before the flood of Noah, 1,000-foot wave hitting the East Coast. Adamic line. But what happens if we had a pole shift? I don't think we're going to have one. But if we did, well, if you get a 1-degree pole shift, I think you get 1,000-foot waves that come sloshing in out of the ocean. The Nephilim were before. That's a big wave. And that's not a whole separate coming out of 400 miles an hour. That's like the flood wave that hit Japan. That's where Noah and his 35 feet. Well, imagine one that's 1,000 feet. So, I mean, if you use the periodicity of wormwood, and I'm using a periodicity of sloshing wave that comes up out of the ocean basin and hits the coast, I think 3,000 feet tall. Well, if you use that as a period, and you go back, take that epoch, and go back in Earth's history, we're going to have those. And let's say that we could on 2012. The Revelation doesn't describe anything like that. Closest by death would have been 1645 BC. Iron oxide before that would be 5302. It does describe, that would be Noah. Alkaline chemicals. Then 89, 59. Big chunks of and that gets you back into the Atlantis civilization that incinerates a third of the Earth. The surface. That's enough to cover the entire western. And there's a lot of evidence for Atlantis that keeps popping up. And all around Bimini, all around south of Bimini,
is there any chance
all around Cuba,
live on planet X?
South of Florida, these huge pyramids underneath the ocean, 700 degrees and stuff off the western end of Cuba. There's all civilization down there. And where would they come with streets down to the bottom of the ocean? No, and the answer is they weren't on the bottom of the ocean when they were building them.
Amazing.
You follow?
Just thinking about this.
What I'm getting here is we might have a planet around it.
Atlantis could have been
we don't know.
because of it passing.
But actually on the surface it'd be like trying to live on a star. Quickly. Now how would that work? You follow? Alright, the Earth is composed of a core.
Now Dustin from Australia,
molten core.
He says,
right?
I hear Nibiru.
And I think most of your geologists would agree with that. And then around the molten core you have a mantle. The best way to describe the mantle would be as a, yes he will. What do you call it? From his point of view, if he looks toward right ascension 18, which is the line that goes up between body flying by Sagittarius and Scorpius, on the core it's right off the end of the arrow tip of Sagittarius, that's right ascension, and pulling the other side down simultaneously. If he looks, one of the descriptions said that Atlantis it will appear to shift to the west during this part of the year. In September and October, it will appear to. So what does it do? Excuse me, as you were in this part of the year, it will appear to have shifted to the east, mantle with its magnetic and September and October. Late August, it will appear to have shifted to the west underneath the lithosphere. Depends on where we are. Lithosphere would be like an eggshell, only much thinner. It would just look like it's just coming straight up the line. So whatever the shell is, for him, from his perspective, mantle will come down from the zenith overhead. The Plato pushes up, go right down past Pavo, and you can have mountains rising up out of the ocean. From his point of view, it's down. They can be down past Pavo, and then have mountains being pulled down under the ocean. Scorpius. They used to be thousands of feet tall. It'll get to a point now they're underwater below the horizon. So from our point of view in the northern hemisphere, and it can happen in one move. It can pull one side under and pull the other side up. We won't see it until it comes up above. So this is a powerful the line of the horizon. Heavy. So it's like being an ant on a big beach ball. It is probably responsible for dividing the continents the way we have them now. You cannot see the sand under, and this is the shaping tool for our solar system. Beach ball's in the way. If you crawl down to the equator, you can see most of the sand. See how it sort of all fits together to crawl down underneath.
The pieces
then you can see the sand
together, no doubt about it.
But you've got to get around the equator of the beach ball to see the sand down below.
We're getting some more questions.
So down below, it's coming out of the southern hemisphere sky. Hello, Missy. How you doing? Head right down for the horizon and disappear below the horizon. From his point of view in the land down under.
Do you think the government is building I understand base underground when I interviewed Jason Q. Direct, he was talking about being a worker of light, talking about actually being
my guess would be that the booms are mostly
spacecraft.
Underground tunneling.
Do you believe that
we have a vast underground tunnel complex now that covers the entire United States.
I mean,
right here just north of us, the mountains that are just north of us at Tehachapi. They could be both. There's a port there that goes down into a tunnel that runs all the way up to China Lake. Can they intervene and keep something like this from happening? Tied into the complexes in Utah. Tied into you got something that could be 11 times Jupiter's mass. Arizona. Spaceship that can move there over to Dulce, New Mexico. Nobody. And so on all the way across the United States, goes all the way to Washington, D.C. It's this gigantic. There's one tunnel complex that comes into San Diego that is so big they can sail a ship into. Nobody can move it around.
So NASA's
going to sail submarines under the land of the U.S. It's just too big and too heavy. The eastern seaboard. I think that nobody's going to move it around. Out somewhere around. If we took all the H-bombs we had and threw it at it, the answers I don't know. But they've got an opening somewhere out there that lets them go under the land. You wouldn't hardly even come up the smoke. And they probably have, pressure doors and all this kind of stuff. So they can get the subs from the west coast to the east coast quickly. And they just go right underneath the U.S. They don't sail through the Panama Canal. They don't sail around the Horn. They don't sail into the Arctic. They go right under the U.S. So they've been spending literally trillions of dollars building an underground system. Well, so the government can survive. Their idea is that government should survive before anybody else survives. She'll be 16. I'm sort of wondering what they're going to do when they don't have any people. It's just government with no people to be government over, but they didn't think about that.
So basically the most corrupted people.
If the first wave of destruction hits this year, later this summer, there's a malevolent spirit that holds principality rights over the political and financial systems. That's a separate problem. It's not a joke. Church is going to be removed. He still holds those rights. So he has the right to influence will be removed. All the non-believers of whatever he's exploiting those rights, will be left behind. To beat the band, he's really going after it. He's been doing it for a long time. It's not a joke. He offered to Jesus as her Savior and as her Lord. Political systems. The Apostle Paul hands the only problem was that the planet they were both standing on says belonged to the Lord Jesus. It didn't belong to Satan. Satan can only offer the symbols, the politics. Believe in your heart that God has raised him from the money. He couldn't offer the planet because he didn't know that. He doesn't believe in the righteousness. That's not his. Confession doesn't know the solar system. That's not what you have to do. Is you're taking an oath unto eternity. Rather than having Satan as your
He says,
political overlord.
Years ago,
you want Jesus
I heard
Christ
that the government
to
was
be
planning on
your
moving
Lord
the nation's
for time,
capital,
biologic
Pentagon,
time,
or
however much
something like
time
that, to
she
my
has.
state.
And for all
Because
eternity, 50 million years out into the future,
you know what?
you have a valid relationship with the designer of the universe. Yes, it is true.
Yeah, because when I was
interviewing
Jason Rand,
and it's paid for. We don't even have to pay for it. It's already signed, sealed, delivered. But we just have to accept it. There's an underground complex under the Denver airport, and it's huge. It's massive. Again, it ties down to Dulce. It ties up to Utah. It ties to Washington. You enter into a royalty relationship with the designer of the universe. Underground. They have levels going down sometimes for a mile.
Tell us about your book, Joe.
It's all tied together. Underground. Well, basically, I go into this in the book. I describe all Denver. That's why the cost of the Denver airport has been so exorbitantly expensive. And that's why the complex is so huge. They're still digging more tunnel complexes under Denver Airport. And they bring that stuff up to the surface and dispose it on the surface. But there's some other things that's what's going on up there. The reason is that Denver sits up on, not too far from the Continental Divide. So Denver's on a plane fairly high up, and they're basically trying to get, move the government away from the coast because, Washington's going to get wiped out if La Cubreviaca gets thrown into the sea, like the Revelation describes, a mountain with fire, burning with fire, thrown into the sea. I mean, that's going to be a mess. The whole Eastern Seaboard gets wiped out. They've already moved the CIA there. There was no choice. They either went or they lost their jobs.
The CIA, I do remember that.
You don't want to be around for being moved in. Yeah, they're being moved to the Denver area. And all the government functions will have, a Denver analog. Those are believers who have lived right into the Denver airport, right underground, and they're safe in their little holes. What matters is do you or do you not have a valid relationship with the designer of the universe, with the Lord Jesus Christ. If you do, He's going to raise you up. Okay?
Isn't it amazing?
It doesn't matter. Life or death. Well, your relationship.
It is, but
interesting is how they got him elected. So he brings the church back. He repopulates the planet. Jeez. And talk about amazing stuff that goes over the planet, and he divides the rulership. The political system of Satan, his dark approach to things, is done away.
When we're talking
and
about
Jesus then,
building underground
brings
facilities and
real light
and all this
and
stuff,
spiritual freedom.
none of this would matter if Planet X collided.
The demons
with
are banished
and is that possible?
Pushed aside. No. So it's going to be a glorious time. It'll be a good time. If you look at the diagram, and it'll be something worth seeing. There's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of development. It'll be very interesting to see what can be done in the 1,000 years. Jupiter, that cut halfway in between there. No more wars. That's the node of right ascension. Imagine there at right ascension 18, and comes up through at an angle. By the time it gets to the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Earth, it's already quite high up above the ecliptic plane. There's a prophecy and it reaches its perihelion zenith, if you would, highest point, will be one of the friendly directly over the top of the sun. With Israel, by the time it comes in across the Earth, it's already quite a ways up. Now again, it will look big and look imposing. It's really quite a bit, quite a ways away. And from the positioning of its perihelion maneuver and the gripping power of the sun has the stronger hand. Yeah, the millennium prophecy. It's about the 1,000-year reign of the Lord Jesus, but it can shake things up, which it does. It can throw a lot of garbage, which it does. It can roll because of the discontinuity layer between the mantle and the lithosphere, it can actually roll the surface of the lithosphere right around. And you can have a pole shift if it grips it and makes it slide. There's a slip and slide layer underneath the lithosphere, right at the mantle. It's very slimy, like a grease layer, wet grease layer. And the whole lithosphere can actually slide over. I mean, at one time, Brazil used to be at the South Pole. And the descriptions are in the Revelation. At another time, South Africa used to be at the South Pole.
To let everybody know if you go to
they've picked up these mastodons up in Siberia, frozen solid. And they open up the stomach, and there's lotus blossoms in there. But those are tropical plants. So at one time, Siberia used to be down where the tropics are. Okay? So it can actually roll the planet over for a while and cause huge problems, massive grief. It's not going to be worth tremendous grief. Or it can slide the surface of the planet around because it's riding on a grease layer. So you don't want to be living on planet Earth when Satan enters the town. Planet Earth's thrown all this gravity and down all its attitude around. You don't want to be on planet Earth. All space junk, the false prophet, poisonous alkaline chemicals ruling planet Earth, just horribly destructive. You don't want to be here. But only the Christian church will be removed to a place of safety. So, my pitch to the people, my message to the people who might listen to this is one portion there's coming a point in time here, not too distant future. I mean, I wish it was farther in the future, but it doesn't look like maybe it's all that far.
Sure, there's coming a point in time when these physical events will happen, and the only ticket out of town. If you look at the outline by the blood of the western coast of Africa, you either accept His lordship or you're under Satan's thumb. They almost fit with a lock and key. So choose. Now, which would you rather kind of theory down in Latin America? The freedom and blessing that comes from a relationship with the designers of the universe, or to be under a satanic thumb? Up here, well, we can't have that. We have to have uniformitarianism, that everything that's going on right now has been going on for millions and millions of years, so that we can have evolution and shmevolution and grevolution 10, 9, and 10 slow change. If we do not allow anything believe in our heart that God has raised the Lord Jesus from the dead, and if we confess with our mouth that we want Him to be our Lord for time and for eternity, we want Him to be our Lord, our God. Then God translates us from the kingdom of darkness that we're in, and places us in the kingdom of His beloved Son. And that's a royalty relationship for eternity. And he looks at the break and says, "That's what I would give as the best piece of advice I can offer, because you don't want to be on for the polar ice cap. Came all the way down across the top of Canada, landed right in America. If you follow the Missouri River, that was the southern edge of the ice sheet. And from that point north, the ice went up between 11, 12,000, 15,000 feet.
I have to say, you opened my mind up to a lot of different possibilities.
That's where the Missouri River sits, at the edge of what used to be. If you want to do any other shows, if you have any other things that you get some questions that, people write in and email you or whatever that you'd like to talk about, we can do another show if you want. There's some issues about the rise of the Illuminati, the rise of the beast,
roll the planet over
how the political stuff plays out is pretty rough and tumble. But, again, my basic offer to the people is, the Lordship of Jesus Christ makes a lot more sense. Designer of the universe, rather than a satanic boot heel, it's a much better deal. Much better. Store up canned food and dry goods. All right. Spare underwear.
I appreciate it, and you have a good night.
Toilet paper. Water. You betcha. Anytime. Water. Fresh water.
Store underwear, because you're probably going to crap your pants at what's going to take place.
They can be washed. What do you do 7 years later when everybody's out of business? There's no cotton farming being done, and everybody runs out of underwear. Those practical little things. How do you get the paper business started all over again? Paper mills. How do you get steel mills started all over again? How do you get? It's just civilization has a lot of wonderful things. How do you get high-tech industry started? How do you get high-tech biology restarted? There's just huge amounts of knowledge that can be wiped away from all kinds of different mechanisms. Again, we talked about a surface wave propagation that comes in if you just throw one of the volcanic mountains from La Palma Island into the ocean, and here comes a 1,000-foot wave hitting the East Coast. But what happens if we had a pole shift? I don't think we're going to have one, but if we did, well, if you get a 1-degree pole shift, I think you get 1,000-foot waves that come sloshing in out of the ocean. Okay, that's a big wave, and that's not coming out at 400 miles an hour. That's like the flood wave that hit, the tsunami that hit Japan. That's 35 feet. Well, imagine one that's 1,000 feet.
I can't.
You get a 5-degree pole shift. The sloshing wave that comes up out of the ocean basin and hits the coast is 3,000 feet tall. That's a big slosh. That thing is not going to stop for anything or anybody.
That's going to go all the way in.
I don't think we're going to have those, but we could. The Revelation doesn't describe anything like that, okay? But it does describe, iron oxide dust, a color of blood. It does describe alkaline chemicals, and it does describe big chunks of something that burns coming into the atmosphere that incinerates a third of the Earth, the surface. That's enough to cover the entire Western Hemisphere, and a big chunk of Pacific and Atlantic Ocean, too.
Is there any chance that life can actually live on Planet X, any life form at all?
Well, again, at 700 degrees on the surface, I doubt it.
Because don't you got the
methane atmosphere and highly alkaline chemicals? No, I doubt it. It's very hot and very inhospitable.
Amazing. Just thinking about this is amazing. We
might have a planet around it. We don't know. Okay? But actually, on the surface, it'd be like trying to live on a star. You follow?
I gotcha. Now, Dustin from Australia, he writes in and he says, I hear Nibiru will be coming from the southern hemisphere. Will I see it first, mate, being that I'm down under? That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, he will. From his point of view, if he looks toward right ascension 18, which is the line that goes up between Sagittarius and Scorpius, it's right off the end of the arrow tip of Sagittarius. That's right ascension 18. If he looks and it will appear to shift to the west during this part of the year. In September and October, it will appear to, in this part of the year, it will appear to have shifted to the east slightly. In the September and October, late August, it will appear to have shifted to the west. So it depends on where we are orbitally. If we could sit still, then it would just look like it's just coming straight up the line. And for him, from his perspective, it'll come down from the zenith overhead and go right down past Pavo, or up past Pavo, but from his point of view, it's down past Pavo, and then down between Sagittarius and Scorpius, and then as it crosses the ecliptic, it'll get to a point where it just disappears below the horizon. From our point of view in the northern hemisphere, we don't see it coming down out of the sky like he will. And we won't see it until it comes up above the line of the horizon. So the farther, it's like being an ant on a big beach ball at the beach.
Right.
If you're an ant on the top of the beach ball, you cannot see the sand under the beach ball. Why? Because you're on the top. The beach ball's in the way. If you crawl down to the equator, you can see most of the sand. If you keep crawling and you crawl down underneath, then you can see the sand. Okay, but you've got to get around the equator of the beach ball to see the sand down below. So down below, it's coming out of the southern hemisphere sky, and it will head right down for the horizon and disappear below the horizon, from his point of view in the land down under.
Now, I understand that when I interviewed Jason Q. Rand, he was talking about being a worker of light, talking about actually being brought aboard an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Okay, do you believe that aliens know about this, that they might be able to intervene at all? I mean, could they be demonic? Could they be angels? What's your opinion on that?
They could be both. There appear to be, good people and bad people, so that's a possibility. Can they intervene and keep something like this from happening? No, not a chance. Why?
It's too big, right?
You got something that could be 11 times Jupiter's mass. Who's got a spaceship that can move that around? Nobody. It's too big and too heavy. You're talking about the weight of a star. It's this gigantic, huge, massive, hot, nasty, filthy star. Nobody can move it around.
So NASA don't even stand a chance.
Too big and too heavy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, I completely agree with you.
It's just too big and too heavy. Nobody's going to move it around. If we took all the H-bombs we had and threw it at it, they would just disappear. You wouldn't hardly even see a puff of smoke.
Man.
That big and that heavy.
Yeah, I know.
Big, it's heavy.
I got one more question for you, and then I want you to tell us about, you got a book, and I want you to talk about that and tell us about your website. Layla from Erie, Pennsylvania, she writes in saying, I'm 14. Will I live to see my 18th birthday, or is this monster going to kill me? I guess it could go both ways, right?
Well, if it comes in 2014, then she doesn't have much time. She'll be 16. If it comes in 2017, then she's got, she'll see her 19th birthday. So,
man,
if the first wave of destruction hits this year, later this summer, depending on where she's located, then she might not see her,
But then there's the rapture scenario, right?
That's a separate problem. Only the Christian church is going to be removed. So only the Christians will be removed. All the non-believers of whatever stripe or religion or whatever belief structure will be left behind.
So if she's a Christian and she truly believes Jesus died for our sins, she'll be raptured.
If she has accepted Jesus as her Savior and as her Lord. Yeah. The Apostle Paul hangs everything on the resurrection, Romans 10:9 and 10. He says that if you will confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord, and you believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. For with the heart man believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. What you have to do is you're taking an oath unto eternity. That rather than having Satan as your political overlord, you want Jesus Christ to be your Lord for time, biologic time, however much time she has, and for all eternity. 50 million years out into the future, you have a valid relationship with the designer of the universe. Well, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
And it's paid for. We don't even have to pay for it. It's already signed, sealed, delivered. But we do have to accept it. We don't have to accept it if we don't want Jesus to be our Lord. And there's another program for those people. But the point is that if you do, you enter into a royalty relationship with the designer of the universe. Well, that's a good deal. That you become royalty.
Tell us about your book, Gil.
Huh?
Tell us about your book.
Well, basically, I go into this in the book. I describe all this stuff. I try to harmonize the revelation. I go through it very carefully and explain what it is, and and all this stuff we've been talking about, in this interview. And then there's some other things I deal with the rapture. I deal with rapture timing problems. I deal with the keys to understanding the revelation. Then there's a second part to the book where I go back and I go through all the Old Testament scriptures. There's a long list of them, and I pull out all this messianic stuff that describes what life will be like during the 1,000-year millennial reign when Jesus comes back to planet Earth to reign for 1,000 years and try to set things right, one last time. And during that period of time, I think that's when we're going to see some serious growth and development on the planet. It'll be a glorious time for planet Earth. You do want to be around for that. You don't want to be around for the 7 years of judgment, but you do want to be around for the millennium. So the Christian church will get to see that. Those who are believers who have lived, or those who are believers who have died, it doesn't matter. It's just, death is irrelevant. What matters is, do you or do you not have a valid relationship with the designer of the universe, with the Lord Jesus Christ? If you do, he's going to raise you up. Okay? It doesn't matter. Life or death, your relationship with him is for eternity. So he brings the church back, and he repopulates the planet, and he rules over the planet, and he divides the rulership. The political system of Satan and his dark approach to things is done away. And Jesus then, brings real light and spiritual freedom to planet Earth. The demons are banished and pushed aside. So it's going to be a glorious time. It'll be a good time. And it'll be something worth seeing. There's going to be a lot of growth and a lot of development. It'll be very interesting to see what can be done in the 1,000 years of peace that comes to planet Earth. No more wars. Can you imagine what's possible?
It sounds like a very good time.
It's just hard to imagine, isn't it?
It is, especially, you got Iran, you got Iraq, all this other stuff going on. It's almost unbelievable.
There's a prophecy about that, and it says that Assyria will be one of the friendly nations with Israel and with Egypt. Go figure.
Go figure.
But it says, there'll be a highway coming in from Assyria, from Iran and Iraq. And it'll go all the way through Israel and all the way down into Egypt.
And what is the name of this book, Millennium Prophecy? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, the Millennium Prophecy. It's about the 1,000-year reign of the Lord Jesus when he's here on the planet. It describes the transition time, which is, of course, rough and bumpy and destructive. A lot of life is lost. And it describes then what it's like. The second part is what it's like during this 1,000-year reign. And then there's a small thing about Gog and Magog at the end of it all, and then it closes out with the final judgments of the Revelation. So it's basically trying to elucidate, to try to make sense of the Revelation, and to give a good, sound, interpretive structure to the symbology and the descriptions that are in the Revelation. That's basically what the book is about.
And I wanted to let everybody know, if you go to the midnighthighway.com, our website, I got all the stuff linked up there too. If you wanted to purchase the book, it's right on the front page. Just click on the book, the photo of it, you could go right to where you could actually pick it up. One thing I wanted to do with you, Gil, is at the end of the show, I always like to give my guests the final word. If there's anybody out there listening that you would, there's just something that you would like to say to them, what would it be? What's your final word?
You don't want to be on planet Earth when the judgments hit. It's not going to be worth it. Most of the people in the Western Hemisphere will be incinerated. Who wants to be here then? You don't want to be living on planet Earth when Satan is confined to planet Earth. He's coming down to planet Earth's got attitude. You don't want to be on planet Earth when, the false prophet and the beast are ruling planet Earth. You don't want to be here. But only the Christian church will be removed to a place of safety. So my pitch to the people, my message to the people who might listen to this is, there's coming a point in time here, not too distant future. I mean, I wish it was farther in the future, but it doesn't look like maybe it's all that far. There's coming a point in time when these physical events will happen, and the only ticket out of town has been bought and paid for by the blood of Jesus Christ on the cross. You either accept his lordship or you're under Satan's thumb. So choose. Which would you rather have? The freedom and blessing that comes from a relationship with the designer of the universe, or to be under a satanic thumb? Well, actually, boot heel.
I think it's a no-brainer.
You know what? It is, but most people don't look at it that way.
Yep.
Romans 10:9 and 10 says, if we, believe in our heart that God has raised the Lord Jesus from the dead, and if we confess with our mouth that we want him to be our Lord for time and for eternity, we want him to be our Lord, our God, then God translates us from the kingdom of darkness that we're in and places us in the kingdom of His beloved Son. And that's a royalty relationship for eternity. It's a good deal. That's what I would give as the best piece of advice I can offer, because you don't want to be on planet Earth when it's going through these changes. You really don't.
All right, Mr. Gil Erickson, I'll tell you what, man, we're going to go ahead and end the show. All right, Gilbert Erickson, I'd like to welcome you to the show. My friend, how you doing?
Good evening. Doing very well.
First off, I want to ask you, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself for those of, the people out there listening right now that don't know who you are. Why don't you give them a little background of you?
Well, I'm a guy from California, retired. Been a, soldier, helicopter pilot, writer, teacher, mechanic, machinist, poet, singer, one-time guitar player.
My God, you sound like the jack of all trades.
Yeah, master of none. Grew up on a farm in New York. We came to California during my college days and decided, after Vietnam, this is probably the one place I really enjoyed the best of all the places I lived all over the United States. So that's where we kind of settled in. My dad bounced around a lot, but I've stayed in California, Southern California, since got back from Nam.
Well, anywhere's better than Nam, right?
Well, yeah. Unless you got family there,
Well, I mean, back when you were there.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was worse sometimes than it should have been. And then I come back and find out at the end of it all that the whole thing wasn't necessary at all. And that was a bit of a disappointment. And you end up getting an education you really didn't want, basically the hard way.
Yeah.
Shoved up certain portions of your anatomy that you wish you didn't have things shoved up.
Yeah, I actually had a high school teacher that was in NAM, and when we were watching a Forrest Gump movie, when they would go to the clips of him going over there, he would always have to fast forward. He couldn't even take watching it.
Yeah. Well, I was a pilot, so I didn't have to pound the ground and do a lot of stuff. But then again, I was a little bit more disconnected from the people, and except for getting shot up and shot down, most of it's fairly interesting.
I can't even imagine.
I was one of the few people who didn't drink, so I ended up getting all the crummy night missions. They have a way of getting to you.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, I understand we're going to be talking about Planet X tonight. Now, there are some people, believe it or not, out there that don't understand what it is. So what I would like for you to do is just explain to the listener, sum it up a little bit, what is Planet X?
Planet X just means planet 10 or planet unknown. That's the definition of X, Planet X. And it's referring to what has been known as the 10th planet, I guess. That's another way of looking at it, which has been known since ancient days. It's part of our solar system. Basically, it's not really a planet. It's a brown dwarf star. It's got a surface temperature probably in the neighborhood of 700-800 degrees. Somewhere between the size of Saturn and up to maybe 1.1 times the size of Jupiter. So it's a brown dwarf. It's not large enough to attract enough plasma energy from space to make its atmosphere glow like the sun does, to have a photosphere.
Right.
Or like a red dwarf does. Red dwarfs can be as small as 1.2 Jupiter diameters. So this has to be slightly smaller than that. As they shrink down smaller than 1.2 Jupiter diameters, then they can't collect enough energy to make the full photosphere, like a aurora borealis around the entire planet. But it's not a planet. It's a pinch off the sun itself. It's basically a big iron ball. So somewhere between 1.1 Jupiter diameters on the high end and down to maybe Saturn size. My guess is closer to a Jupiter size, plus or minus.
So it's pretty big, no doubt.
Well, Jupiter's about 317, not quite 318 times the size of Earth. It's a little bit more oblate than Earth. It's more squashed down at the poles. So its girth around the equator is longer than its polar girth. But Planet X will be about that size. Could be a little bit bigger than Jupiter, but not much. And it's the binary companion for our sun in this solar system. I should explain to your audience, too, that before the WISE satellite, we figured around 65% of the stars out here in the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy in our sector of space, about 65% were red dwarf stars and brown dwarf stars. You can't see a red dwarf or a brown dwarf with the naked eye. They're just not bright enough. It takes pretty good equipment to see a red dwarf. Now, they do have a glowing atmosphere, photosphere, but a brown dwarf does not. They're too small. So
you can see this with your basic telescope.
You can see a red dwarf. You can't see a brown dwarf. Brown dwarfs have a heat signature, so they give off light. They give off a signal in the near infrared, but they don't give off anything, in the visible part of the spectrum that the human eye can see. Rattlesnakes could see it if they were looking through your telescope.
I wanted to ask you this, too. On your website, you have a wormwood animation. That would be what, millenniumprophecy.com?
That's correct.
And we also got that on the midnighthighway.com. Explain that animation and how you come up with that particular orbit.
Well, basically, I had my son do the math. He's a bit of a wizard on computers anyway. He's a pipeline code writer for the movie industry. And we wanted to get a perihelion display of sorts to show what this thing would look like, the tremendous long reach it has because of its extreme mass, weight. And it'll come in somewhere between 5, if it's a Jupiter-size object, it'll come in between 4 or 5 on the low end, maybe 7. If it's 1.1 Jupiter's diameter, then it could be as high as 11 times Jupiter's weight based on density. Basically, it's a big, giant cannonball. It's a pinch off the sun itself, formed during the early days of the solar system formation. You're looking for something a little bit more even odd, red and black or something. But you don't take an 82% chance against you. Okay? Yet, 82% of the stars are binary.
Also, if you think you have got a good story to tell or have some information to share with the listener,
we know now that the stars are binary, mostly binary, and most of them are small. You can't even see them. And the brown dwarf stars, you have to have infrared capability to see them, because you can't see them by a light signature. You have to look at them in the near infrared. So small stars dominate on a nose count basis.
I'd like to welcome you to the show, my friend. How you doing? Okay.
Good evening. Doing very well. If it flipped the odds back the other way, the odds then become
who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself for those of
that the sun is also a binary.
That don't know who you are.
Like 82% of the other stars.
Background of you.
Does that make sense? I'm a guy from California, retired. Then the question comes, okay, well, the sun is, the odds are 82%, soldier, helicopter pilot, but the sun is a binary. Writer, teacher, mechanic, the sun's binary companion, poet.
Well, that's getting deep right
now you're asking the correct question. You see it?
Yes.
One-time guitar player. It's not a fear-mongering issue.
Oh, my God, you sound like the jack of all trades.
It's a solar system construction in New York, and a statistical came to California during so if we can't see the sun's binary companion, then it's not a red dwarf because they're visible after Vietnam. This is probably the one place. And that means we have to be looking for it in the infrared part of the spectrum. So. Okay, that's where we kind of settled in. So anyway, from a statistical point of view, Southern California, since so many stars are binary pairs, that's just how it is. Well, I wouldn't want to take the fear-mongering label, but I wouldn't want to bet against it either. There's family there,
Well, I mean, back when you were there. I mean, I know you said you've been looking into this for about 40 years.
It was a revelation, as bad as it could have been, integrated correctly.
Now, what about Planet X? I mean, what really got you into the topic?
At the end of it all, the whole thing wasn't necessary at all.
Just kind of break it down.
That's a bit of a disappointment. Well, my problem is, again, how do you explain what's the driver mechanism that can cause all these physical, effects described in Revelation 6, certain portions of your anatomy that you wish you didn't have shoved up in Revelation 16. Not the political effects in chapter 9 and so on. But the physical effects, 6, 7, 8, and chapter 16. What drives that? That was a big one. It wasn't until our good buddy, you've interviewed him, Dr. Jason Rand. I was a pilot, so I didn't have to pound the ground and do a lot of stuff. But then again, I realized he'd hit the nail on the head. And what we had to do was put it together, shot up and shot correctly, and try to fill out that most of it's fairly description.
I can't even imagine.
And that if we could, I was one of the few people who didn't drink. We might, we might have. I ended up getting all the Friday night missions. We also had at least one source from inside the Pentagon. They have a way of not Beltway, but inside the.
Well, I'll tell you what. I understand we're going to be talking about Planet X
who told us that
there are some
from the best information that they had, the thing would be 60 times Jupiter's mass, and it would be orbiting at 90 degrees.
What is Planet X?
To the ecliptic plane.
Planet X.
That's where those diagrams came from on the website.
Planet unknown. That's the definition of X.
All right, now we have to impose a little bit of other order to it.
Referring to
if it is a body orbiting anything in space, it will orbit and it will spin. Because that's what the plasma energy of space does to bodies, which has been known since ancient days. It's part of our solar system. Basically, it's not really a planet. It's a brown dwarf star. Perpendicular. It's got a surface temperature orbital plane. In the neighborhood of 700-800 degrees. In other words, when it generates an ellipse between the three-dimensional Saturn and up to maybe 1.1 times the size of Jupiter. Okay? So it's a brown dwarf. And that plane then is at 90 degrees to the ecliptic plane, generated by the sun. Energy from space and its planet make its atmosphere glow. Like so with that information, I started trying to pose order. Okay, what would we have? Like a red dwarf filling in the blanks. Red dwarfs can be as small as 1.2. And then more and more information kept coming in about brown dwarfs in general. So this has to be slightly smaller than that. As we work our way through smaller than the 1.2 Jupiter diameter information, the clues, you try to construct a basic idea what it is that's going on. What was the surface temperature? 700 degrees. Aurora borealis around 800 degrees. It's pretty hot. It's not a planet. It's not hot enough to give off light. Pinch off the sun. You can heat up a piece of iron. It's a basically a big iron ball. Somewhere between 1.1 Jupiter diameters on the high end and closer to melting point size. 11 or 1200 degrees now it starts to glow red. You can see it then.
So it's pretty big, no doubt. Very interesting.
Okay, well Jupiter's about 317, not quite putting these clues together, we come up with it's a little bit more better profile as to what it actually is. So it's a giant cannonball, probably somewhere between Saturn size and Jupiter size. So I'm guessing more towards Jupiter size. Upper limit probably around 1.1 Jupiter's diameters max, but could be smaller. Planet X will be about that size, could be a little bit bigger than Jupiter, but not much information. And it's a brown dwarf. It's the binary companion of the sun. It's mostly iron. I should explain to your audience, it's a Jupiter-sized object. It'll be probably in the 7 to 8 times Jupiter's mass. Before the WISE satellite, we figured around 65%. And if it's 1.1 Jupiter's diameters, then it'll be about 11 times Jupiter's mass. And that's about the upper 5% where red dwarf lower limit Saturn size. So anywhere from there on down. You can't see a red dwarf or a brown dwarf star, alkaline atmosphere, gathers Oort cloud junk. Takes pretty good equipment to see asteroids, pieces of space junk, glowing atmosphere, all kinds of methane ice and crap out of the Oort cloud, the trans-Neptunian objects, and so on. And when it comes in on perihelion, it's loaded for bear with lots of junk. You can see a red dwarf. It also seems to have a tremendous capacitive charge. So they give off light. The juice coming out of the sun plus wormwood's own spin, and its volcanic action seems to lost billions of tons of highly charged iron oxide particles out into its upper atmosphere and from there out into its disk. So it creates a reddish-brown dust.